Yeah. Right, health and safety announcement. There's no fire alarm drill anticipated today. If the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building through the nearest exit, following the running man signs above the doors. Make your way to the rear of the car park. The organiser of the meeting will tell you when it's safe to return. Toilets are available in the stairwell of the building. Water is available from the water cooler in reception to the left of the main door here. And finally, please make sure all phones are either muted or switched off. Thank you. Morning. I'm the chair of the meeting, Councillor Eileen Wragg, and welcome to this Planning Committee meeting on Tuesday, 9th of June, 2026. Sitting to my right is Vice Chair Councillor Steve Hunt. The supporting officers present today are Wendy Ormsby, Development Manager, Damien Hunter, Planning Solicitor, and Wendy Harris, Democratic Services Officer. The presenting officers for the applications today will be Senior Development Control Officer Charlie McCullough, Development Manager Wendy Ormsby, and Senior Planning Officers Jill Himsworth and Nigel Barrett. This meeting today is being streamed live to the Council's YouTube account, so can I remind all members and officers contributing to the meeting to use a microphone or your comments will not be heard. We will now start the meeting by doing a roll call of committee members and declarations of interest.
Thank you. Can everyone hear okay? At the back? Brilliant, thank you. Can I just remind members, if you could just move your microphones to the front so when you speak, they'll be able to hear you. Thank you. So I'll start with the chair, Councillor Eileen Wragg.
I am present. Declarations of interest. I've been lobbied on 240841, major full application, Honiton St Paul's. 252397, major full, Royal Beacon, Exmouth, and 25007, major outline for land northeast of King's Garden and Leisure, Exmouth.
Thank you. That one's been withdrawn. Sorry? That's been deferred to a later meeting, the last
yes,
one.
It has, yes.
Thank you.
It's on this agenda, yeah.
Vice Chair, Councillor Hunt.
Yeah. I'm present and I have the same declarations as Councillor Wragg.
Thank you. We haven't got Brian. Councillor Barlow.
Present and no declarations that I'm aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bloxham.
Present and again lobbied on 240841 M4 agenda item 8. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Colin Brown.
Present and not received anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Present, been lobbied once, haven't read it on purpose, so I'd have clear mind, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Davey.
Present and the same lobbying as everyone else.
Thank you. Councillor Heath?
Present and no declarations so far as I'm aware.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes?
Yeah, present, Wendy, and lobbying on 0841. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Levine?
Present, I'm very peeved that I haven't been lobbied as much as everybody else.
Was that a no lobby?
No lobby.
Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Sorry. Agenda item 1. Colin.
Sorry, yes. My wife has been lobbied because she's a ward member.
Yeah, she's not on this committee.
No.
though. No. Thank you. Registered speakers. The speakers for today's applications can be found on pages 4 to 6. Agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meeting, pages 7 to 10. Is it members' wish that I, as the chair, sign the minutes of the meeting held on 9th of June as a true and accurate record? Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. Agenda item 3, apologies. Wendy?
Yes, we've had a few apologies. Councillor Brian Bailey, Councillor Sarah Chamberlain, Councillor Steve Gazzard, Councillor Bethany Collins and Councillor Simon Smith.
Thank you. Right, agenda item 5.4. Ian?
Sorry, Mike Howe sent his apologies if he didn't make it because he was stuck in
Okay.
Rome last month.
Thank you. You get that, Wendy? Yeah. Thank you. Agenda item 4 has already been done, declaration of interest. Item 5, matters of urgency, there are none. Item 6, any confidential or any items to be dealt with after the public have been excluded, there are none. Item 7, planning appeal statistics, pages 11 to 28. Over to Mrs. Ormsby, please.
Good morning. So looking through the decided appeals, I think the only one of particular note to raise this morning is the application at land at Abbey Road, Dunkerswell, which was an outline application for residential development for up to 65 dwellings, and that appeal was dealt with through an informal hearing, and the appeal was dismissed. So the inspector upholding all the council's reasons for refusal, which include the unsustainable location of the development, adverse landscape impact, adverse impact on conservation area, and also loss of best and most versatile agricultural land. And that was a site that was not an allocated site in the emerging local plan, so a sort of an application that had come in on spec, so to speak. So yeah, that was a positive outcome, but nothing else particularly to draw your attention to unless you've got any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Agenda item 8, planning application 240841, Major Full land west of Tower Road and east of Cuckoo Down Lane, Honiton, pages 29 to 140. And the Senior Planning Officer, Charlie McCulloch, will present the report. And I, before we start considering this application, I realise it's hugely controversial, and the committee well understand the feelings of many of you here present So please bear with us as we deliberate the outcome. But also, could I please ask you, despite your understandable wish to probably applaud speakers or boo them or heckle them, that you refrain from doing so. We have a very long day. We're not expected to finish this until this evening, this day's meeting, and then we have another one on Monday. So please be mindful of the committee as well. Thank you very much.
Friday.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Chair. So, as you say, this is an application which has drawn a lot of attention, and members may recall that this was due to be considered at Planning Committee in January, but was withdrawn late in the day due to a matter raised by a third party in relation to the application of paragraph 200 of the MPPF. That matter has been considered now and is addressed within the committee report, and I'll cover it in further detail in the presentation. So the application is before committee as it represents a major development where the Officer view differs from that of the Town Council and one of the ward members. It also represents a departure from the development plan. Permission is sought for the change of use of agricultural land to football pitches, together with the associated engineering works to provide level and suitably surfaced and drained pitches, and the addition of landscaping and the construction of a clubhouse and car park. It seeks to address Honiton Town Youth Football Club's needs for additional pitch provision and improved facilities. The club currently being based at St Rita's Field, close to the west of the town centre, but consider that their current site is untenable in the longer term as it lacks space for adequate pitch provision, has no toilets, changing rooms or other basic facilities, poor access for emergency vehicles and a lack of parking provision. The lease on the use of that site has also expired. So this first slide just shows the outline of the site. The access from Tower Road is proposed here with a separate pedestrian access from Cuckoo Down Lane here. This shows the relationship with the immediate surrounding area. So it's agricultural fields at the moment, labelled 1, 2 to 3 there, and that's the golf course to the south of the site. This just shows the site in a wider context, so you can see the relationship with the built form of the town. So the site here on the edge of the inland plateau, and the town on lower land to the northwest. So on this slide, this taken from the Honiton Sports Pitch Strategy from 2017, which is in the process or is nearly completely updated now. But this shows at the time the potential sites for sports pitch provision in and around Honiton. The application site forming part of Site 2 here. Of the other identified potential sites, 6 has been developed for housing, 7 and 8 are partially in high to medium risk flood zones, and 4 also has flooding issues around the edge of the site, as well as access issues, and where the club has indicated there is no willingness from the landlord to lease that land. As I say, there is an updated playing pitch and outdoor sports strategy, which has recently been undertaken, and where the findings of that indicate that there remains latent demand for youth grass pitch provision at Honiton and in the wider East sub-district area. And this is increased due to the uncertainty over the future availability of St Rita's Centre, with predicted housing growth in the area. The current deficit is also set to increase. The action plan includes the recommendation to support the provision of additional grass pitches and ancillary provision in and around Honiton, including Tower Hill, subject to planning permission being granted. So this just shows some of the constraints around the town and the difficulties of finding suitable sites for pitch provision. You've got areas of flooding to the north and west of the town and centrally, and then very steep land around it to the south side. You can see the application site in the bottom right corner there on relatively level land. This is showing an indicative pitch layout for the different youth pitches that could be provided at the site, and also identifies the raising of levels at either end to provide the level pitches with surface water drainage attenuation features at either end of the site, and the clubhouse and car parking area down here. This site plan is just here to show the relationship again with the golf course, and you can see on the drawing there it indicates the likely requirement for golf ball netting protection, albeit this is shown on the golf course side of the boundary. These are just some site sections, although obviously the scale of them, it's difficult to see exactly what's being proposed in terms of level changes, but the maximum raising of levels would be at the clubhouse or the Tower Road end of the site and would be around 2 metres. That level area of land would be set back from the road behind the clubhouse and the parking area and the attenuation swale, and where additional landscaping could be provided. So this shows the clubhouse and the car parking area. Clubhouse would provide kitchen and changing rooms, storage, plant room and toilet facilities. And the car park is shown to provide 52 spaces, of which 4 are accessible. The County Highways Authority has confirmed that the access proposals are acceptable. In terms of parking provision, concerns have been raised by Offwell Parish Council and local residents regarding the perceived lack of provision, which they consider would likely result in unregulated parking on the approach roads. The applicant has considered parking provision within their transport statement, and allowing for car sharing considers the parking proposed to be sufficient. This just shows the external materials proposed for the clubhouse building, which is predominantly vertical timber boarding to the elevations, some stonework to the lower parts of the elevations, and profiled sheet roofing to the roof with solar panels on the southern roof slope. So these are a series of, in the foreground here, and the existing planting on the boundary with the golf course and the back there. This is another view southwest along Tower Road from slightly further away, and it shows field 3 in the foreground. And that's a view along Tower Road in the opposite direction, again with fields 2 and 3 on the left this time. And again, this is a view along Tower Road frontage with field 3 in the foreground. This is a view from the central part of the site. So the main field, that's the boundary with the golf course on the right, and this is the boundary with field 2 on the left. That hedgerow is proposed to be removed as part of the application. And again, that's a better shot. That is the hedgerow in the central part of the site, which is proposed for removal. That's another hedge at the northwestern end of the site, which would also be removed to enable the development. And that's a view from the northwest end of the site towards Honiton on the lower ground there, with moving down the left boundary there as we're looking towards Cuckoo Down Lane, which is where the proposed footpath link up to the site is proposed. And that's from Cuckoo Down Lane, footpath link proposed in here, running up that boundary towards the site. Just another view of that up towards the main part of the site. So these two photos are just more recent ones which have been taken, just so you get an indication of that boundary in particular now when it's in full leaf cover, so that members are aware of it when it's in full cover, and less so. And again, the same boundary there. So I've just returned to this slide here because this is the main crux of the issue as officers see it. So this again is the site plan, and as I pointed out earlier, the boundary with the golf course and the requirement or the indication that some form of netting may be required on the plan there. So during the course of the application, officers raised the issue of safety along this boundary, but had originally accepted that the responsibility for such provision would lie with the golf course. However, this didn't take into account the implications of Para 200 of the MPPF, and which have now been considered. So Para 200 of the MPPF, it's set out in full in your committee report on page 27, if you wanted to refer to it. But what it says is, planning policies and decisions should ensure that new development can be integrated effectively with existing businesses and community facilities, such as places of worship, pubs, music venues, and sports clubs. Existing businesses and facilities should not have unreasonable restrictions placed on them as a result of development permitted after they were established. Where the operation of an existing business or community facility could have a significant adverse effect on new development, including changes of use in its vicinity, the applicant or agent of change should be required to provide suitable mitigation before the development has been completed. So applying this to the application, as the agent of the change, it would be the applicant's responsibility to provide any mitigation required, where it could give rise to a significant adverse effect. To assess the need for such mitigation, the applicant has been requested to provide further information in the form of a ball strike assessment to assess the potential risk and to identify any mitigation measures. The applicant has expressed the view that Para 200 should not apply, as the striking of golf balls onto the application site is in itself unlawful. Officers in association with the Council's planning solicitor considered the matter in detail and take the view that golf ball strikes from the golf course are an inherent risk, but that the proposed change to a more intensive and sensitive use of the site significantly increases that risk and the potential for a significant adverse effect to occur. The agent of change principle therefore applies, and without a ball risk assessment, it is not possible to conclude that users of the site would be safe from ball strike or that such risk could be acceptably mitigated. So, turning to the planning balance, as they're set out there on the screen. So in terms of harm, the site lies outside the built-up area boundary and is not allocated for such development. It's therefore contrary to Strategy 7, development in the countryside. It also lies within a national landscape and will result in a degree of harm, and where any mitigation measures that may be required to address safety concerns could increase such harm. Future users of the site are also, due to the location and lack of alternatives, likely to be largely reliant on private transport to access the site, conflicting with Strategy 5B and Policy TC2. Some ecological harm would occur through the removal of habitat, and again, any mitigation measures that may be required to address the safety concerns could increase such harm. There is insufficient information provided to understand the safety risk posed by potential miss-hit golf balls, and as such, it cannot be determined that the proposal would not give rise to an unacceptable safety risk, or that mitigation measures to address any such risks could in themselves be acceptably accommodated. In terms of benefits, on the other hand, the proposal would deliver against a clear and long-standing need for additional youth pitch provision. The applicant has provided details of alternative site search to show there are no clear and available alternatives. and notwithstanding any additional measures related to safety, landscaping and ecological impacts could be acceptably mitigated and BNG provision secured. Again, setting aside any additional impacts from any required safety mitigation measures and subject to conditions, there are no outstanding objections from technical consultees. So the application on that basis and carrying out that balancing exercise is recommended for refusal. The reasons in full are set out in your report, but in summary, it relates primarily to the lack of information on the safety risk to enable us to determine that it could be that the two uses could acceptably coexist without mitigation measures or an understanding of what impact those mitigation measures might have. So despite the location of the development being far from ideal in sustainability terms and the development of the site giving rise to some localised landscape impact, officers have in principle been supportive of the scheme, recognising the lack of alternatives to meet a long-standing and recognised need for additional pitch provision. However, taking into account the implications of Para 200 of the NPPF, this places an emphasis on the applicant as the agent of change to provide suitable mitigation where a significant adverse effect could occur. In order to understand that level of risk and what mitigation might be required, the applicant has been requested to and been given the opportunity to provide a bull strike assessment. They have chosen not to do so, arguing that Para 200 does not apply in this instance and that the responsibility for ensuring golf balls do not enter the site lies with the golf course. It's regrettable that officers are unable to support the application on this basis. But additionally, without an understanding of the level of risk, it is not clear what mitigation measures may be required and whether they in themselves may be acceptable. There's an additional reason for refusal there, which could be overcome were the application to be recommended for approval, but it's a requirement for a legal agreement to secure the BNG management and monitoring going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. The objectors now, Jim Faverty.
I have a statement to read out on his behalf. My name is Jim Faverty and I oppose this application for two reasons. Reason one, the choice of site for the applicant appears to be the easiest and least expensive choice from those offered in the 2017 Honiton Sports Pitch Strategy. Unfortunately, 14 local and national pieces of legislation, policies, strategies and frameworks oppose this application in some form. There are other possible sites, each with its own set of issues. In order to accommodate the pitch and facilities needs, all alternative sites might require more money, more work, more creativity, more compromise and/or more agreements. To that end, there should be found an alternative site that breaches less than 14 local and national guidelines and if approved requires fewer conditions. For example, in the Honiton Sports Pitch Strategy, Honiton's former showground site was rated priority number 2, scoring 5 points above Tower Hill, which was rated priority 3 in the Honiton strategy. Issues include electrical pylons, which could be situated over the parking lot to avoid safety problems. Only a small edge of the site is within the floodplain. Soil is classified as wet, so may need extra funds for drainage systems. Will need levelling as with all sites. It is similar size to Tower Hill. No need for hedge moving, and it may be more suitable for floodlights. The location offers the potential for more suitable access from Honiton Town Centre. Reason 2. The planning officer has proposed some 18 conditions or requirements in order to mitigate the effect of this application if approved. These conditions aim to lessen, repair or prevent immediate or lasting detrimental impacts from this application upon the landscape and environment. Two of these conditions require 30 years of management and monitoring. I have found no evidence of such a monitoring system truly integrated within the authority of East End District Council, but have only heard that the planning officers rely on information from members of the public who suspect breaches. Surely this is no way to justify any such change in our countryside. If the sports pitch is going on part of the national landscape, I would rather see it adjacent to the town next to a major A road than in the open countryside. Thank you for your time.
Stephen Gilbert, sorry.
I'm a chartered civil engineer and I worked for Devon County Council's Highways Department for 43 years. And the last 10 years, I've been a health and safety advisor in the construction industry. My principal objection to the application is the lack of control and safe passage for children and vehicles to the site in Tower Road. When questioned, the Highway Authority stated that the decision had to be evidence-based, and that since there were no recorded accidents in Marlpits Hill over the last 5 years, there was insufficient grounds for objection. Indeed, the Highway's response was so wide of the mark that it proposed that Marlpits Hill would be designated a shared surface arrangement, similar to city streets, where the mix of pedestrians and cyclists act to slow vehicular traffic. But this is no urban high street, it's a 60-mile-an-hour rural road with no pavements, no street lighting, no refuge, and pedestrians includes a 1 in 6 gradient. Not surprisingly, the planning officer has concluded that Marlpits Hill approach is far too unsafe for pedestrian use. So the applicant states that parents will be directed to use the site or approach the site via the A35 for Tower Road, an unlit road which narrows down to just 3 meters wide, and importantly, no drop-off points included in the plan. Conversely, again, National Highways response concluded that the impact of vehicles from Tower Cross, an accident cluster point, would be minimal because most of the traffic would be contained in the local road network, i.e. Marlpits Hill. Are any of these public bodies talking to each other? Under the current regulations, all construction projects require a health and safety plan to be written prior to commencement of the work. The plan must include risk assessments where all future hazards are identified with their possible frequency and severity. There is no reliance on historic accident data. So regarding frequency, the applicant estimates 52 vehicle trips in a half-hour period, and if half the parents stay and half return later, that would generate 156 trips, quite a high frequency for each training session. And the severity, I'll leave it to your imagination, the outcome of an accident between a 7 to 12-year-old against a car on a 60-mile-an-hour road. Regrettably, the only concession to road safety made by the applicant on the whole scheme is to ask young pedestrians to walk through the church graveyard, which in itself leads to a blind bed at the bottom of Marlpits Hill. This nowhere addresses the risks involved. I wish Mr. Leese well in his pursuit for the alternative site for the youngsters, but clearly for these reasons and in accordance with the planning officer's report and the current pitch strategy, Tower Road is the wrong place. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam Tuke, you have a statement?
Yes, I do. I apologise for not being able to attend. My name is Sam Tuke and I am the closest neighbour to the proposed site. It is a generous gift from the Marker Charitable Trust to offer this land to people of Honiton. There is an obvious need for better facilities for youth football pitches, which has not been met, but the suggested location is the wrong location. My personal concerns relate to the lack of detail relating to the supply and drainage of water. The application states that there are 750 members with 160 children playing football during a tournament. It states there will be rainwater collection and a borehole for portable water, but no actual calculations of volume or location of the borehole. My only source of water is a spring, which is in line with the proposed clubhouse. In 2025, after an extended period of drought, the flow dramatically reduced, only returning in December to full flow. Since the 1970s, we have also been supplying water to the Honiton Golf Club. I am deeply concerned that this topic has not been properly investigated. What impact will this have on my family? Only access to water. The Environment Agency will be reviewing my and Honiton Golf Club's extraction rights next year as my spring feeds Offwell Brook and the River Collie, and they have expressed their concern. My second point is rainwater drainage. Climate change is with us, and as predicted, we are seeing wetter winters and hotter summers. Last year, it was particularly dry and then very wet. The volume of water that came from Tower Road was excessive, causing dramatic erosion in our woods and undercutting the Goyle next to our drive, opposite the proposed site. It is the only access to the house. The water damage was more obvious to the general public on Marl Pits Hill, the vast piles of gravel at the junction and the many new potholes. This application gives very detailed information, flattening, removal of hedges and drainage so the pitches can dry in winter. Once the rainwater storage is full, where will the excess go? How will it affect my land and the people of Honiton? Solar panels don't work if they aren't connected to the grid. So this means there will be 1 or 2 new poles in my field, a field that already has 2 poles and 2 preserved oak trees, making this arable field harder to farm. Throughout this application, there seems to be a lot of information about the pitch and the clubhouse design, but very little detail about the impact to the surrounding environment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Wendy. Right, supporters now. Rachel Payne. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name's Rachel and I'm here speaking in support of this application as a parent of 2 boys who play youth football in Honiton. I've taken the time to read the objections and I recognise the concerns around traffic, ecology, accessibility and landscape impact, and they deserve careful consideration. And what strikes me is that no one is disputing the need for better football facilities. The question is not whether our children need them. The question is what happens if you refuse this application. The current facilities, as we've heard, were deemed inadequate in 2015, they're poor quality and overcapacity, and acknowledged that Honiton had significant pitch supply issues. However, 11 years later and no alternative home has been delivered, hundreds of children continue to play without proper toilets, changing facilities or suitable facilities for spectators. As someone with 2 boys playing football, there are many Saturdays when I can arrive before 9 and not leave till midday. Families spend hours supporting their children without access to any facilities that most people would consider a basic requirement for organised youth sport. There is also the equality and accessibility issue. We talk about inclusion, yet the current arrangements make it difficult for people using wheelchairs, mobility aids, or even pushchairs to attend and support their families, whilst almost completely excluding girls from wanting to continue playing football. Community sport should bring people together, not unintentionally exclude them. I understand the concerns relating to wildlife and landscape, but surely we need to be consistent. Honiton has seen significant housing development despite similar concerns around ecology, traffic and landscape impact. But because the wider public benefit was considered to outweigh the harm and the council has a housing quota to meet, these applications have gone ahead. No site is perfect, but this is a deliverable solution to a proven need. And so I implore you to think beyond football, to think about health, well-being, confidence, inclusion, belonging and community. And ask yourselves, if not here, then where? And if not now, then when? And as the Minister Baroness Twice-Cross said only last week, the community hubs that bring us together and the grassroots sports clubs in every corner of the UK are not just buildings and organisations, they are anchors of our community and the foundations of our society. They are the places where confidence is built and where the next generation discovers their talent belongs on every stage and on every pitch they choose to play on. I ask you to support this application.
Thank you, and thank you for keeping to time. Thank you. John Milsom, please. You have 3 minutes, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning, everybody. My name's John Milsom. I'm a parent of one of the under 14 players in Honiton Town Youth Football Club. That one there, to be precise. As you all know, Honiton is a town that continues to grow through housing development and population change. What has not grown at the same pace is the provision of formal outdoor recreation spaces, particularly grass pitches suitable for organised sport. The result is a town where the level of participation has risen, but that capacity of provision has not. Youth football is a clear example of this. Whilst participation levels remain strong and demand continues to grow, the legal requirements and expectations around the safeguarding, safety and quality of provision are rightly higher than they were a generation ago. However, Honiton Town Youth Football Club still operate within the existing St Rita's Field land footprint where they have for almost 30 years now. This is a difficult to reach location. There is no changing rooms nor toilet facilities, as you've just heard. This inability to provide basic needs reduces our inclusivity, particularly for female players. St Rita's location has very limited, predominantly on-road car parking that has become more and more congested with the recent housing development and will only get worse when further planned housing adjacent to St Rita's Field is built. This poses an increasing risk to a young person being hit by a car when accessing St Rita's, probably more so than a golf ball. In short, the need has outgrown the current site to allow safe and compliant organised sport to be provided. This application seeks to correct that in a way that is proportionate, purposeful and community focused. It will bring the recreation infrastructure back into balance with the town it serves, by providing facilities that allow youth sport to function properly, safely and with full inclusivity. It does so with a plan shaped by evidence, professional assessment and sustained engagement with the planning process. It has the funding in place and is ready to be delivered now. Members, planning decisions inevitably involve balancing competing considerations. In this case, it is between maintaining a failing status quo or enabling a development that responds to a real and measurable pressure on community infrastructure. The National Planning Policy Framework asks decision makers like yourselves to look not only at individual sites, but at outcomes for those communities. This application enables the delivery of sports pitches that will correct a long-standing shortfall in recreational spaces in Honiton, supports public health and youth participation and brings local provision back into line with national football policy expectations. I respectfully ask that you support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Christopher Legg, please.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today in support of this application. I stand before you not only as a representative of a football club, but as someone speaking for hundreds of local children, parents, volunteers and families who rely on the opportunities that youth football provides within our community. Honiton Youth Football has been a valued part of the town for many years. During that time, we have provided a safe, welcoming and exclusive environment where young people can take part in sport, develop friendships and gain valuable life experiences. Our club is open to children of all abilities and backgrounds, giving every child the chance to play and benefit of organised sport. The reality is that the club has grown massively. More children want to play football than ever before, and that is something we should celebrate. However, our current facilities are no longer able to meet the demands of a growing club and the needs of the community we serve. This proposed relocation represents the only opportunity to secure the future of youth football in Honiton. It will provide facilities that are fit for purpose, capable of supporting current involvement levels while also accommodating future growth. Most importantly, it will ensure that local children continue to have access to quality sports facilities within their own community. The benefit of youth football go far beyond what happens during a match on a Saturday morning. Football helps children stay active in a world where physical inactivity is becoming an increasing concern. It supports mental well-being, teaches teamwork, respect, discipline, and gives young people a sense of belonging. For many children, football is the highlight of their week. It provides structure and confidence and creates friendships that often last a lifetime and helps young young people develop skills that will benefit them throughout adulthood. The proposal is also about investing in the future of Honiton. Communities thrive when they have a strong local organisations, and youth sport plays a vital role in bringing people together. Every weekend, our teams bring families, friends and supporters together in a positive environment and strengthens community spirit and pride. We fully appreciate that planning decisions require careful consideration. However, we believe that the social, health and community benefits delivered by this proposal are substantial and long-lasting. The relocation is not simply about moving football pitches from one location to another. It's about creating a sustainable future for youth sport in our town. Approving this application would send a clear message that Honiton values its young people, supports healthy lifestyles and recognise the importance of providing opportunities for future generations. Many of the children who play for our club today would become volunteers, coaches and community leaders themselves. So by supporting this application, you're investing in those young people and helping create lasting legacy that will benefit Honiton for many years to come. On behalf of our players, families and volunteers and the wider football community, I respectfully ask the community to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Krista Large, please. You have 3 minutes, Mr. Delarge.
Thank you. I'm Chris Delarge. I just wanted to talk about my own personal situation and what would happen if we lose the club. I have 3 boys that are currently playing football at Honiton with 3 different age groups. All of them are football mad. One of my boys has been part of Honiton Club for 8 years and loved every minute of it. But since reading the planning document, I've been honest, I've been looking at other teams for my boys to join. I've been to Fennerton, Ottery, but with no joy. They can take 1 boy, but not 3. So we've looked around Exeter and moving to travel, but that will be 2 or 3 times a week to travel to Exeter. And if all the players are the same location, it looks like I'm going to have to tell my boys they can't play football in the game they love. If you look around the boys' teams, they are a lot of families in different situations. Some parents work weekends, some parents don't drive, some parents are single parents with 2 or 3 children. But at the moment, we all work together, making sure the boys can play the game they love. If we have to travel to Exeter to play football, we wouldn't be able to get them there. You may notice I'm saying boys a lot instead of children, or boys and girls. This is because we can't facilitate girls at any of our teams. We have no clubhouse, which means we have no toilets, which makes it unacceptable for girls really to play in our teams. We can't even provide basic amenities. This also means we have no access to drinking water. The children to play sport is quite frankly dangerous. I've seen in the Devon planning documents comments that there are a lot of people in the town that think sport isn't important to children and young people. But I'm sure they will be at the same people complaining on a Saturday and in the week after school that there are children hanging around town because there is nothing else for them to do. Sport is an essential part of children's well-being and mental and physical health. Without sport, they will be able to socialise in a controlled environment. They potentially could be out causing mischief and getting into trouble. Thank you.
Thank you. Alison Phone, please.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today in support of the planning application before us. I'm speaking as a parent of 2 sons who play for Honiton Town Youth Football Club and who are here today with their teammates. Obviously, not all the children could make it today, but these boys and girls and their family members represent the 250 children that are registered in our club. I think we can all agree that the proposal for a new clubhouse is much needed for this amount of children in our community, who proudly represent our town in the many matches they play around Devon. My observations in support of the new planning application include the following. No changing room or toilet facilities, which is not acceptable. It's a basic need to have toilet facilities available for our children. We have a few girls in the club who struggle more so with no use of a toilet, as has already been said. I've heard that they need to restrict the amount they drink to avoid needing to use a toilet because there are none available. Can you imagine them playing for 70 minutes and having this stress on their mind? When I say we have a few girls in the club, the reason there are so few is that when they find out there are no toilet facilities, they don't want to play in our club, which excludes an entire gender from participating. Inadequate access to the youth pitches means walking down a muddy lane with no disabled access, which excludes disabled spectators from supporting their children or grandchildren. It cannot be acceptable that being disabled disqualifies you from sharing in your children's development. Lack of parking encroaching on residential streets, especially when there is more than one home match at the same time, which means that often there are children navigating a busy road with vehicles blocking their view. In an area that has increased its residential population, the addition of the extra cars on match days is only increasing the likelihood of an accident occurring. Visiting teams arriving at St Rita's are shocked when they arrive, finding no facilities to use. The existing Honiton youth pitches have now gained a reputation for how muddy visitors get and the fact that they have to go to Tesco to access the nearest bathroom facilities. It's embarrassing to say the least. A town our size should be able and willing to provide the facility that we are supporting today. Football is an inclusive sport and our children are passionate about it, which shows in their support this morning. The absence of a youth football facility in Honiton would be hugely detrimental to not only their physical, mental and social development, but also to the potential for growth and pride in our provisions available in our town. This is about community. It's about hope for our children's future. Surely we can work together through the issues stated from each opposing side and create an opportunity for our children to see how a situation like this can be worked out together. Otherwise, what's the point of community? Allowing this planning application to proceed will give full participation from our youth teams, both boys and girls, to all spectators, where basic needs are finally met by the new provisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, could I ask Councillor Robert Fowles from Honiton Town Council, please?
Good morning. Apart from what you've seen, the demand from local learning disabled youngsters who are desperate to play. They have identified a team and a trained coach but have nowhere to play. The proposed facilities are inclusive and would serve the needs of them and the introduction of girls' teams. However, MPPF Clause 200, the agent of change principle, stands in the way, despite submissions from 2 independent specialists showing that it is misapplied in this case. The Golf Club asserts that the agent of change principle requires the applicant to fund a ball strike survey and install boundary mitigation. As a matter of law and planning precedent, the agent of change principle cannot be invoked to absolve an existing operator of its primary statutory safety duties, nor can it transfer liability for its physical projectiles onto a developer. The UK statutory legislation supersedes the MPPF policy in matters such as this. There is a distinct difference between the Health and Safety at Work Act and the underlying land use safety risks it addresses. Under Section 3 of the Act, the Golf Club owes a non-delegable, absolute statutory duty not to expose the public to risks to their health and safety, including future users of the proposed football fields. The introduction of the football fields does not diminish this criminal law duty. A planning policy mechanism cannot be utilised to contract out or shift a statutory health and safety obligation. The agent of change principle is explicitly designed to manage conflicting land uses regarding amenity impacts, principally noise, dust and odour. It does not apply to physical safety hazards such as high-velocity golf balls striking children. The golf club is entirely strictly liable in negligence and public nuisance for injuries caused by golf balls escaping its boundaries. The unreasonable restriction the golf club claims it will suffer arises from its own pre-existing failure to contain its sporting activities within its lawful curtilage. The LPA cannot lawfully impose a planning condition or demand a Section 106 contribution requiring the applicant to remedy a safety hazard generated by a third party's commercial operation. To do so would fail the legal test set out in paragraph 57 of the NPPF, as it is neither necessary nor reasonable. The legal responsibility to control golf balls at source remains entirely with the golf club, as does the mitigation. Along with our MP, Honiton Town Council urges you to pass this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tony Norris, please. Councillor Tony Norris.
I represent Offwell Parish Council as Vice Chair. Tower Road is the boundary between Honiton and Offwell. The 2017 Honiton Pitch Strategy's conclusion was no sports pitches should be delivered on this site because it would be contrary to multiple policies of the local plan and its impact on the national landscape. Other issues include no sustainable transport options and inadequate parking, the dramatic increase in traffic along Tower Road, which is used by large agricultural vehicles, children's safety, both at the site and getting to and from the site, the applicant's refusal to supply information on a number of important matters, the supply of potable water. The applicant proposes a borehole, which could compromise the closest neighbour's spring, which it relies on, as well as the golf club. This spring is the source of Offwell Brook, which feeds the River Collie, and as you have heard, the extraction rights are up for review. Then there is the agent of change issue, which I'm not qualified to speak on at all. Then, if approved, 80 conditions would be imposed, which in our view, the council does not have sufficient staff to monitor compliance. The applicant has ruled out all other locations and states this is the only location for its continued existence. This is incorrect. There are always other options. The old Honiton Showground could be an option, but has not been properly explored. This weekend, a football festival was held at St Rita's with several hundred cars, and there's a picture of it. St Rita's didn't seem to have a problem with this, so why not some improvements to the current location? Tower Road could not cope with this. Honiton Showground is not considered and is not totally on the floodplain as claimed. They have never been approached. What about utilising council-owned land? For example, land west of Hayne Lane next to Coombe Garden Centre. Great location for youth football, on bus routes, walkable, on lit pavements, and on the Exeter cycle route. Currently, all the Honiton clubs do their own thing, making their own improvements. There needs to be an integrated approach from East Devon to outdoor sports from Honiton. We would also like to remind you of an application some years ago for increased parking at the golf club. It was refused because of its location in the open countryside in the national landscape and would represent an alien intrusion into the countryside to the detriment of its natural undeveloped beauty. We are also concerned about the level of abuse, both online and face-to-face, which we understand has been directed at some objectors. Offwell Parish agrees that the youth club needs improved facilities, but Tower Hill is totally the wrong place, and we urge the committee to agree with the officer's recommendation and reject. Thank you.
Thank you. John Leask, the applicant, please. Honiton Town Youth Football Club.
This application is about one thing: saving youth football in Honiton. For several decades, we've served over 250 children every year, aged 5 to 18, across 14 teams. That's every single week. The FA requires different pitch sizes for different ages and safe runoffs. To deliver that properly, we need about 10 acres. That's not a wish, that's FA guidance and operational reality. With ongoing growth in the town, our existing 3-acre site at St Rita's is severely overcrowded. It has no toilets, no proper access, and no sustainable lease. It's not viable and is an extensive threat. For years, with the FA and pitch specialists, we've assessed every realistic option. Honiton is a narrow valley with steep slopes, flood risk, and national landscape designations. Most sites were too small, too wet, or too steep. Tower Cross is the only site that meets the size, topography, and delivery criteria. This is supported by EDDC's own latest draft leisure strategy that confirms it's the only supported location within Honiton. Yes, it's national landscape, but so is most land around Honiton. Our scheme is grass pitches, no floodlights, and a small clubhouse tucked away in a corner. The visual impact assessment, highways, and ecology reports confirm it's acceptable. This is detailed in professional reports rather than opinions and hearsay. In January, planning officers recommended approval. They've now reversed that recommendation based on a claim that stray golf balls create a health and safety risk under a misapplication of NPPF paragraph 200. But there is no substantive evidence before you that supports that claim. EDDC Environmental Health, the statutory body for public safety, was a mandatory consultee. They visited the site, they've confirmed in writing, no concerns, no issues, and no unmitigated risks. The safety argument is unsubstantiated and contradicts with your own expert officers. We maintain our position based on specialist legal advice which we've shared with you. Should any risk exist, it would be created by unsafe practices from the golf club, and therefore their responsibility to manage any safe mitigations. We have over 700,000 already secured, but it's time dependent on this approval. The community support is overwhelming, as evidenced by the extraordinary turnout today. If you refuse this, Honiton can't deliver FA-compliant youth football. Hundreds of boys and girls lose their club and the opportunities that it provides. This isn't about finding the perfect site. It's about the only viable solution to an urgent evidence need. Approve it and give Honiton's young people a future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roy Collins, the adjoining ward member, please.
Thank you, Chair. I do deplore the fact that all these children are missing a day's schooling. It's wrong to use children as a political weapon. Honiton Golf Club was first formed in 1896. It has getting on for 800 members. Full membership is £1,200. 16 to 17-year-olds is £76. Juniors under the age of 11 is £36. The recent golf club building has been refurbished at a cost of over £800,000. To my knowledge, the golf club have never claimed any grants from any councils. I believe it to be one of the best clubs in the country. Golf balls have always gone astray each year. The club has 3 claims on their insurance for broken windscreens. I farm a little field opposite the golf course. It's only an acre. My son baled the hay up there last Friday, and I went up there last night and I counted 23 balls in that field. And I can show you, this is golf balls that we've picked up in that field over the last
Councillor
10
Collins,
years.
You should be declaring an interest, I believe. He has a
I
field
do
close to the
not
golf course.
do not pay any rent or anything for the field.
The
I do it as
solicitor
a
agrees
favour.
that you should be declaring an interest, please.
I declare an interest. The golf club fear that cars will be parking in their car park on their land, because 50 cars is nothing. You heard already when they had a gala that there was 350 cars. Now, the fields, I've known those fields since I was 8 years old. They have clay subsoils leading to waterlogging. They do not dry out until mid-May or June. Water drainage from this site would lead to flooding down Malpotts Hill and Churchill. Extreme weather, when we have snow, that is the last place where the snow melts in those fields. If you want to find snow, you can find it up there even into June. Honiton Livestock Centre, they could
Councillor
not...
Collins, you've overrun your time. Can you wind up, please?
The reports from the applicant are quite wrong. Peter Graham Blanchford Ford, known as Pongo, was killed in 2010 near the proposed entrance.
Councillor Collins, I'm going to stop you there, please. I think you could take a lesson from the other speakers in not overrunning your time. Thank you.
He has to leave during the debate.
I think the public need to be told to calm down. They would be quite rude
Yeah,
when he
yeah.
was
Yeah.
talking.
Just need to clarify the extent
Yeah.
of his interest. Does he own the land?
Councillor Collins, legal advice is that you should declare an interest. Can you be quiet, please? I'm not taking any more speakers. We'll be here all day. We are here all day anyway. Councillor Collins, can you declare? Yeah, it makes no difference. I'm sorry. We've had the public speakers. Yeah, you can do that through the complaints procedure. Excuse me, I must stop you there. I must stop you there. Yeah. Can I stop you, please? I did ask you. Your behaviour so far has done you credit, but I'm afraid this isn't doing any good. Members, questions? Questions from members, please?
Shall we deal with this issue?
Yeah, he'll deal with them.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just clarify, Councillor Collins? Sorry, there was some mention there of you actually owning some land adjoining the proposed site. Is that correct?
All the land I own is declared in the Register of Interest.
I'm asking you now, do you own a parcel of land that's adjoining the application site? No.
I do not rent any land up there. It's just
He
that
said he
Sam
owned it opposite.
Sam Cook owns the field and he asked me to tidy it up. When he bought the land from the golf club about 4 or 5 years ago.
Is there a commercial arrangement in place with regards to that?
No.
Right, on that basis then, I don't think you have any declaration to declare, so you can remain in the meeting. But you've said your piece now anyway. You're a local ward member. You're not a member of the committee, so you won't be taking part in the discussion and vote in any event. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, do you have a question?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to all our people attending from the public. It's nice to see people showing such a keen interest in the planning process, which is a quasi-judicial thing, and it can be a bit dry and boring, but I think this meeting's been far from that. I've got a question. It's to Mr. McCullough, who's the presenting officer today, and that is how much are we aware of any dialogue between the golf club and the football club in trying to resolve this issue? And also, are we aware of how much the cost of any fencing, or screening, if it's required, would be, since the application is said to be fully funded?
So two points there. In terms of dialogue between the golf club and the football club, I'm not aware, or I'm not party to that, so I don't know if that's been going on or not. My impression would be that there may have been some discussions at the start, given that the submitted drawings, which I showed you earlier on the slide, said golf netting to be confirmed with the golf club, but I don't know what discussions have taken place. In terms of the second part of your question regarding the costs of any netting, we don't know. The reason we don't know is because we don't know what extent of netting would be required, because to understand that we would need the golf ball risk assessment to see, first of all, if netting is required, and if so, where it goes, what height it is, and what other impacts it might have. What I can say is that we approached a body which carries out these type of assessments and asked them for a quote for the costs of carrying out the assessment itself, and that was just over £2,000.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I, with your permission, Chair, could I ask a supplementary question?
Yeah, of course.
I don't know if this is more appropriately addressed, though, to the applicant, because since we're being advised by the presenting officer that we're not aware of much dialogue between the golf club and the football club, I wonder if the applicant could give us some clarification on that, because it seems this netting is obviously the crux of the issue. If it's something that could be solved between two clubs which are both in our community, we've been talking about community sports here, it would be helpful to hear about any discussions from Mr. Lisk.
Mr. Lee, yeah, do you have a microphone there?
No, he has to go at the front.
Oh, you'll have to go up there.
So the Youth Football Club approached the golf club prior to actually putting in the original application, which was nearly 5 years ago, in order to work out whether there's any considerations that the golf club or use of a golf club would have on the application. The golf club did confirm at that point that the only concern they had was the way that the drainage might run onto their fairway, and therefore the drainage strategy that we put together was to ensure that drainage ran away from that. That was the only concern they had, and therefore we submitted our application based upon that. We were surprised when the golf course lodged an objection to it, and both ourselves and the Marker Estate have approached the golf club on numerous occasions in order to try and resolve the issue. I say the issue really sits around two elements, as I explained. One is around whether there's actually any demonstrable risk. You have a golf club, the raising of a possible health and safety risk consists of a single letter from the golf club. There's no other evidence, no other suggestion that this risk is. And even your own environmental health department have gone and assessed the risk assessment, which we believe is stronger than any ball strike survey. And they've confirmed that actually there are no outstanding mitigations in place there. So, obviously in terms of the netting, it's, we don't understand, as Mr. McCullough said, that whether that requirement is needed. The advice that we've been given from environmental health and which is generated from the golf club's own risk assessments, is that it's not required. In terms of netting, it would depend on where that would need to go. To prevent a risk at source would be a lot easier than presenting the risk at either destination. So
Okay,
it could be as cheap as a small, golf net where they drive off from.
Thank you, Mr. Leake. I'd like to ask you something. Can stay there in case any other members have a question. Has the suggestion that golf balls might go astray ever arisen with you, and whether you've taken legal advice on paragraph 200 of the NPPF?
Sure. So, as I say, the raising of the golf club, golf balls going over that site was first raised in the single letter from the golf club to the planning process. That was a surprise to us and a surprise to the Marker Estate, who currently farm the land next to it. So it's not a sterile piece of land. It's currently a piece of land in use, and therefore the Marker Estate were concerned about any risk of golf balls to its existing tenants, which obviously it has a duty of care to. That's the only time it came to our, came to our awareness. The Marker Estate immediately wrote and said, should you be hitting golf balls into my land, please cease doing that immediately. Therefore, that assumption is that has been made, that they have not doing that. Yeah.
Thank you. Members, any more questions?
Oh, and sorry, you asked a question about the legal. Did you want me to answer that? So yes, on the legal, we approached two specialist planning solicitors, both Mitcham Moores and Foot Anstey. Foot Anstey have provided 3 letters to the planning department, which should be on file, where they consider that paragraph 200 does not apply to anything other than lawful use, and they consider that the use that hitting golf balls outside of a boundary of their property is not lawful operation.
Thank you. Councillor Davey, do you have a question for Mr. Leask? No, you do. Councillor Barlow.
Just one final thing. So it only costs you £2,000 to do a ball strike survey. That's the thing that's holding this up. Why haven't you done one?
It's good question. The reason that we haven't done one is the advice, is twofold. One, we don't deem that it's necessary based upon the other evidence in front of you, including your own environmental health, review. The second element is that we've been advised by our legal representatives that actually by engaging in a ball strike survey, we are instigating the transfer of risk onto ourselves. If we do a ball strike survey, ultimately we're making a decision where we believe netting should go. By making that determination, we're then getting transferred across to us all liability for any future injury caused by golf balls. It is not something that we are legally allowed to transfer onto ourselves because of responsibility, and the statutory responsibility, as has already been pointed out, is for the golf club to provide that. They're statutorily responsible for that. So therefore, we've been advised that should we start that process, we are accepting responsibility for any future risk, which we're not entitled or allowed to do.
Thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Leask? No more questions. Right, then, thank you, Mr. Leask. Councillor Barlow.
Thank you. A couple of questions. Floodlights. The pitches aren't going to be floodlit, is that my understanding? That's question one. And can you just explain then to us, should we pass this today against your recommendation, what is the position with the golf course then? Are we saying basically that they can't play there anymore if there is a risk? Because I presume the problem with putting up nets is the many bats in the area that might get caught up in it would cause as much problem, I imagine, to us on the environmental side as anything else. So can you just explain, even though it's not their responsibility, if we were to put that there, is that causing possible risk to the golf course that is there through no fault of their own? They've been there, as it's been pointed out by Mr. Collins, or Councillor Collins, for a lot of years.
So in terms of floodlights, no, they're not proposing any as part of the application. Were they to come back and want them at a later date, I suspect there would be concerns about that and it would need its own permission. But there's no floodlights proposed as part of this application. In terms of where the liability would lie if, I think the question is if the committee would to decide to approve this, what impact that would have on the golf course. Yes, the liability would lie with the golf course to provide appropriate safety netting or other measures to ensure that there was no risk from flying golf balls entering the site. But that's the point of the issue with the Para 200 of the MPPF, is that it's effectively saying where you're introducing a new use and that new use is potentially causing an issue for an existing established lawful use. It's for the new use or the applicant, the developer of the new use, to address that risk. And that is the advice that we've had from a planning point of view as to who should be looking to mitigate that risk.
Through you, Chair, just coming back. Sounds very, very sensible to me. So is it possible, should we be willing to pass this today, to put a 106 or something on it to say that they, the new football, the new user, would be responsible for putting up whatever mitigation for ball things is necessary or not?
Julie?
Can I just answer that, but I also expand on one of the issues, is that the starting point is that, first of all, we don't know if there's a risk. And if there's a risk, we don't know how severe that risk is, to then be able to understand what mitigation is necessary, if at all. If this were an open boundary between the golf course and the football pitch, then it's reasonable to think, well, ultimately the solution may be, do they need mitigation netting and ball stop netting, or don't they? But what we have is a boundary of mature trees that the canopy of which overhangs the football pitches and the fairway on the other side. So to put netting along that boundary is likely, depending on the extent of that netting and how high it has to be, to require significant works to those trees to fit it onto the site, basically. And because we don't know, A, whether it's needed, B, how big it is, how extensive it has to be, we can't then assess what the impact may be on that tree belt, with the knock-on impacts for landscape impact in the national landscape. And as you've mentioned, it is a bat flight path, that particular boundary, and that's been identified in the ecology surveys. So whether it is ultimately the responsibility of the golf course to put it up or the responsibility of the football pitch to put it up, the sort of the implications are still potentially there, and we don't know what they are. So because we haven't got that assessment, if we were to, when we have considered it as officers, should we, could this be dealt with through planning condition? Obviously something we felt was a likely question today. And the answer is no, we don't, because A, it needs planning permission in its own right, most likely, because to be of any use, it's going to be very high. So it'd be development that requires planning permission. And you wouldn't normally put in a planning condition that you have to do something that you don't know if it's going to get planning permission. And we don't know what all of the knock-on implications will be, which is why we have said we need this risk assessment to understand if there's a risk, and if so, how extreme, and how do you mitigate it? With the absence of that information, that is why, as officers, we have very, as I say, there's a lot of other potential conflicts with this application in terms of its national landscape, the location. We're very much recognising the need to facilitate a development, but on this particular issue, with the absence of that survey, we cannot recommend that the scheme is approved. And equally, a Section 106 agreement wouldn't work in for exactly the same reasons, is that we don't know what it is or if anything is needed, and what, if it is needed, what it actually is.
So,
You
through
wanna
you,
come
Chair,
back?
is it possible also for us to defer today to give the Finch Football Club time to get this survey within? I know they say they don't want to, but that's entirely up to them. Is it possible for us to give them the opportunity to do that for the sake of £2,000 to do that?
I think they've had the opportunity, Councillor Barlow. Councillor Davey, you've got a question? Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a question? Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. For clarity, are we saying it's a hypothetical risk? Isn't that the same with any planning application next to a railway station or anything like that? It's hypothetical. It could be a risk, it could not be a risk. And we're asked to make a judgment on that. Am I
I think
correct?
unless we can be absolutely sure that there is no risk, we have to be cautious.
Just coming back on that, so I think that, I mean, certainly the correspondence that has come through from the applicant in terms of correspondence that they've had as land users with the golf club, telling them they're not allowed to send balls over their land, etc. And the commentary then that would indicate that there is some balls coming onto that land. I think it would be, it's a genuine risk. Living next to a railway is very different. You have a fence between you and the railway line. The likelihood of golf balls going astray and going onto neighbouring land, I think if you spoke to anybody who lives next to a golf course, is a genuine potential risk. And the issue is you're also looking at the type of risk. At the moment, the land is, you know, it's farmed, so there's very limited times when there are people or etc. on the land. When that land is in use, it will be, I mean, we've talked about how very popular it is and how many children are likely to be on that piece of land at one time. The likelihood of any ball coming over causing an accident is obviously going to be much, much higher when you've got a very densely packed piece of land with people in it. So I don't think you can compare this to living next door to a railway line.
Thank you. Councillor Levine.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Collins preempted my question, and Mrs. Ormsby also, but I don't think we really understand what this risk means. The question that I have actually to officers, how many golf balls have you actually encountered when you went to survey the site? Are we talking about once in 3 months, which you are never going to find out by going to, is statistically impossible to
But
to
no
predict.
assessment has
And
been done.
if you are going to talk to me about 3 golf balls a day, yes. If you're going to talk to me about 3 golf balls every month, it is impossible to establish. What you are asking, what I believe is, as a statistician, and unfortunately, regrettably, I have to declare that, you are asking the football club to do an impossible survey. And that's what jars with me. Because we're not, you can do a good survey if you have lots of golf clubs next to football pitches, but not in this particular instance. So I'm trying to work out what is this business of what level of risk are we going to find acceptable, and what sort of level of risk are we going to find unacceptable, and how do you find out?
Wendy.
And that's a very good question, and that's exactly the question that we've been asking. We need to understand the level of risk, because we need to understand, therefore, if there is mitigation needed or not. If the application is approved today and then it transpires that actually there are quite a few golf balls coming over, and this is not safe, having lots of children running around, looking up at the air for heading balls and getting hit by a golf ball, that mitigation is then required. And then it has to be dealt with retrospectively. And then we don't, as I say, understand what the implications of that are going to be, because we've got that mature tree belt, a bat flight path, the extent of netting, etc., that would be required, which is why there are companies, not myself, I'm not a specialist in this area, who are specialists in that area, who can undertake these ball trajectory surveys and risk assessments to provide the level of information that we need, certainly from an officer level, to be able to confidently recommend what the risks are and how it could be mitigated or not, if not needed.
Before I go to Councillor Hughes, I've got a question. References have been made to the Environmental Health Officer. Was the Environmental Health Officer ever consulted on the risk of golf ball strikes?
Thank you, Chair. So the Environmental Health Officer was consulted, as they are as standard on most major applications, at the start of the application, and came back with comments really just regarding construction impacts.
Yes.
They didn't consider the wider implications of the safety risk, and they wouldn't do so because they are in the same situation as us, as not knowing the level of that risk. And I had a conversation with the Environmental Health Officer this morning just to clarify that was the case, and he confirmed that it was. The applicant has, or there has been some correspondence, I think, which the applicant's referred to with the Environmental Health Department, looking at the issue of safety as the golf course operates at the current time. And any findings of that, though, are only related to the current use of the golf course, not the impacts that could arise from the proposed use.
Thank you. And there's nothing to support the statement that there were no concerns, because in the report, which is very brief from the Environmental Health Officer, it's really refers to what you've already told us about hours of operation and noise, really. That's what they were concentrating on. Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I've been sat here, and there appears to be many facilities right across the UK where actually football and golf actually coexist. I've actually found some places where you've got football being played next to a golf driving range. Well, I know for a fact that if you've got a golf driving range, you're getting far greater, more balls being hit from a golf driving range than you are from a golf course. And one of those is Prairie Sports Village up in Burnley. It's a premier complex. It features a purpose-built top tracer driving range that's alongside 2 FA-approved 3G floodlit football pitches. So I personally don't have a problem with this application. And the other thing I would mention is how does Somerset Football Club get on when Somerset Cricket Club get on when the balls get hit over Morrison's car park or over in the church? And that happens.
Councillor Davies. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I don't want to put Mr. Hunter on the spot here, but there seems to be, firstly, a dispute about the agent of change principle and its interpretation. And I was interested in the suggestion that the safety aspects are not covered by that it's generally to do with existing lawful usage. And also the football club have been advised that if they were to carry out a ball strike survey, they would be admitting liability. Could I just ask for your view on that?
Thank you, Councillor. Well, obviously, I can't comment on what, excuse me, legal advice they've received and why the solicitors have felt fit to give them whatever advice it is. All I can say is my advice that I've given to the planning officers is that I believe that paragraph 200 of the NPPF is relevant. Again, if you'll indulge me, we can just briefly go through the content of it. It does say planning policies and decisions should ensure that new development can integrate effectively with existing businesses and community facilities. Obviously, this new use is going to integrate with an existing business, the golf club. Existing businesses and facilities should not have unreasonable restrictions placed on them as a result of development permitted after they were established. Seems a reasonable premise. Where the operation of an existing business or community facility could have a significant adverse effect on a new development in its vicinity, the applicant or the agent of change, as they're known, should be required to provide suitable mitigation before the development's completed. So again, what it's saying here is that potentially the existing business, the golf club, could have the new development, the football pitches, could have a significant adverse effect on their business. You know, it could mean that they have to stop these golf balls from going onto those fields, which will become football pitches. And the law's quite clear, as it says, because the applicant is that agent of change, they're the new people coming along effectively to this area, they are required to provide this suitable mitigation. Now, we don't know what the suitable mitigation is because none of us here, maybe there might be somebody sat there, I don't know, is an expert in producing a golf ball risk assessment. That's why the officers have said we need to get a risk assessment carried out by a suitably qualified person. And then once we've got that risk assessment carried out, officers can then also be told whether there is any suitable mitigation that can be put in place to stop any of the children or anybody sat, stood there watching a football match. Nobody wants to go and be clonked on the head with a golf ball and be injured or worse. So what the officers have said, in my opinion, quite reasonably, is the football club should get a golf ball risk assessment carried out. If they do that, we'll know what the risks are. We can take them into consideration. It may well change the recommendation then. But at the moment, in the absence of that report being obtained, then they can't properly assess the risk and they can't properly advise members to approve this application. So we are in this situation where, unfortunately, from my point of view, they've got legal advice that's saying, don't do this. My advice is, do it. And then the members will know what they've got to do.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. That's very succinct. Thank you. Councillor Barlow.
Could I
Councillor Barlow.
just ask Mr. Hunter just to comment on that liability issue, that the football club would be admitting liability for stray golf balls entering their land if they were to have that survey carried out?
I don't know why that would be the case. So, no, I can't comment on that, I'm afraid. If they've got legal advice to that effect, then I haven't seen it, then I can't comment on it.
Councillor Barlow.
Yeah, but it makes no sense, does it? Anyway, sorry, my question is, so on a positive note for the football club, on the golf course, obviously where they shoot balls all over the place and there's people walking around, in 130 years, how many people have been killed or seriously injured by a golf ball hitting them? That's my first question. Do we know that? And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I don't think we have that information, do we? No, we don't have that information. Perhaps you should have looked it up before you came, Councillor Barlow. Right, any more questions, members? No? Okay. Debate then. John.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I'm going to fully support Honiton Town's Community Football and Sports Association for the following reasons, and I'll keep it fairly brief. It will be no more than a couple of minutes. One, a large golf course and clubhouse is already established adjacent to the proposed land to be used for football pitches, and that pastime takes up far more of the area than the football pitches will. Two, the road can accommodate 2 vehicles passing. I know this because I use that road a lot from Beer to Honiton. 3, the installation of nets should prevent stray balls from entering the football pitches, and the nets could be installed on the golf club side facing the pitches. An assessment could be made as to how high the netting should be. 4, Honiton is a medium-sized town, therefore children would need transport irrespective of where the pitches were located. The next point is the facilities would not be visible from Honiton Town. The next point is off-road parking facilities would not be an issue if a dedicated car park was to be built on the site. And off-road parking facilities and the current facilities as highlighted by our MP, Richard Ford, are unsustainable to growth and are unsuitable for the needs of boys and girls. There is no scope for improving the current facilities that are used by the football team or teams. And the next point is football is our national game and youngsters should have decent facilities. You would expect me to say that, being the son of a Geordie, where it's a religion, of course, in Newcastle, despite the fact that Newcastle United aren't very successful, generally speaking. It is completely unacceptable to deny children opportunities to be physically active, which is necessary for their physical, social and emotional development, and to get them away from their over-reliance on sedentary activities such as gaming, and to play the game on a site which has little or no adverse consequences to the urban area. We should be encouraging physical recreation, not putting caveats in the way of sport. Coming to the end now, the alternative site at Offwell is 2.6 miles from Honiton, so it's not within the Honiton catchment area. The proposed site is too far away from the A35 to cause congestion. Honiton Town Council supports the proposal, as does 3 district councillors. There are 200 parishioners in favour of the proposal, with only 15 against and 1 district councillor who doesn't represent that part of Honiton. And my final point is speed limits could be imposed at 20 miles an hour on that stretch of road. Devon County Council Highways have not made any objections to the application, and you could also put in speed humps there to slow traffic down. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Barlow.
So I will balance that with, well, we are about to break, if you were to support this, every single thing that we are always banging on about: sustainability, national landscape. It's not safe to walk up there, and even if it was safe to walk up there, no one's going to walk up there because it's a big old hill. So it seems ridiculous to me that we were considering it anyway. People say it's not going to. To me, football is played mainly in the winter months, when you will require floodlights. And as soon as we put that in there, they will then reapply for floodlights because they want to use it more. So what exactly are we going to do? We will then pass floodlights, and then that will be visible from certainly all of Honiton, Offwell and all that area, probably as far as... Possibly as far as Exeter, I would believe it would be visible, because it's going to be like a beacon on top of the hill in the national landscape that we're always told we're supposed to bring. We don't allow any houses there. Don't allow 3 houses in the national landscape because they're not sustainable. And here we are putting something up there that is in a not sustainable thing that everyone is going to have to drive up there to all the time. Then you get to the golf ball thing with the golf course. If we are passing this, I would want a condition in it, a 106, it wasn't answered if it's possible, that if netting is required and if it is allowed to be put in there, that the football club pay for that. That only seems fair. I still think that we should defer this. I think we should give them 3 months to get a ball strike survey. And if they don't want to do that, then we make a decision on the back of that. Because again, it's all very well saying, you know, they won't get hit, which is great. And I understand the statistics and the risk of it. At what point are you going to be happy? 1 kid gets hit? 2 kids get hit? Once a year? You know, these are the things that you're now passing there. And then to say, oh, it's the golf club's fault. Well, not really. The chance of hitting a farmer that goes in a field once a month maybe with a tractor. It's not very often the farmer will go out with a hoe these days or a scythe. They're usually in a tractor, which gives them some sort of protection. Again, you know, it's all very well parents saying, we want it there. But if they get hit by a golf club, or golf club, well, that's even worse, but a golf ball, you know, what are they going to say then? Whose fault is it going to be? It'll be our fault for passing it, or the golf people for hitting it. So I think you need to be very careful what you if you do want to go against Officers' Day, to make sure that we put in something there, a condition that says, A, you need a ball strike survey. It should be done now. I don't understand why the football club would be responsible for something coming over if they do it. I just don't believe that. But I'm not a lawyer. We've got two legal opinions on that, and so, you know, they need to decide that. Someone needs to do a ball strike survey, and then the people going in, the football club, should be responsible for the cost of it. Why should it fall on the golf club? It's been there for 130 years. That's just common sense to me, and I think if we're going to do that, that's a minimum that we should put in. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to add to that as well by saying that if we were to refuse this, the applicant could go to appeal and it would then be tested by the Secretary of State. And that would be an interesting decision and would provide us with a benchmark for the future in case of any other similar applications. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I will declare that I used to live next door to a golf course when I was in Essex. I lived there for 7 years, at the bottom of the 9th tee, and I never got one golf ball in my garden.
Yeah, okay. That's not relevant to this application.
No,
We just stick
it's
with
relevant
this
to the fact that
application.
golf balls go flying
The wind
everywhere else.
might have been blowing in the wrong direction, Colin. I mean, it's not an argument.
Well, no, they was coming towards me and I never got any, I'm pleased to say. Well, I'm not pleased
Yeah,
to say because
all
I
right,
could have
can you
sold them back.
carry on?
But it's, I mean, this application has got the support of 4 of the 5 members of Honiton Town Council. They're all in support of it. It's got the support of the Highways Agency. Devon County Highways are supporting this application. They've got no objections to traffic on the road. It says so in the report. I do not believe strip generation intensification will be a problem. So there's no problems there from Devon County Highways. The flood risk assessment that comes forward. LPA are keen for the development to be approved. You go to the senior leisure officer. He supports the application. So all the officers so far are in support of it. You go to health and safety, and they do not advise against this application not going forward on safety grounds. Sports England are in support of it. By providing new pitches, they help to address established play and pitches deficiency in East Devon. So they're in support of it. The only people who don't seem to be in support of it are the planning officers. They was in support of it at one stage because they wrote it up for approval to come forward like that, and then they've changed their minds.
Oh, no. Councillor Chapman. Members of the public, I did ask, please, you're just making the day longer and a lot more stressful. Please refrain from the applause. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. There's just one point. I'm back to the railways again. Exmouth Football Club is down by the railway, and Exmouth Football Club have just put up some netting. So if we passed it, the club could then put up the netting on their side to protect their players, and everyone would be happy. And as for the landscaping, whatever in the countryside, we're already putting it with concrete and bricks to meet the government housing allowance. We're already building on green sites. So to give 250 children a good playing field and a good clubhouse, I think is an excellent idea.
Thank you. Councillor Levine.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment to what Councillor Barlow said. The way he goes on, we wouldn't be doing anything in this world because there's always a risk associated with anything. I almost got into a car crash this morning because somebody pulled out when they shouldn't have done. So should I stop driving because I ran a risk of crashing? We can't. There are some risks which are acceptable and some which are not acceptable. And just because there is a risk doesn't mean to say we shouldn't do it.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm very conflicted on this one. We've got a lack of information about certain things, most importantly, the bull strike. As Councillor Levine says, we accept the risk when we go out in a car every day. But the problem is we just don't know the level of risk here, or even who's responsible for it. There seem to be question marks over drinking water, and we haven't mentioned biodiversity net gain, but one of the officers' issues with this is that there don't seem to be any arrangements for those, and therefore we can't draw up the S106. However, we have to set against that the other issues. It sounds as though the football club has explored lots of alternatives to this pitch and just hasn't found one that's suitable. And there is the wider public interest. As an ex-teacher, I know only too well the importance of activity for young people. And it is nice to see some of them here today, seeing democracy in action, if indeed it is. And I just hope it hasn't put them off, because we need future councillors, and some of them might be interested enough, and some of them might think that was the worst experience of my life. I never want to go to another council meeting again. There been comments about a lack of parking. In my experience, a lack of parking is going to prompt car sharing. So if you arrive and you can't park, you think, maybe I won't bring little Johnny on his own next time. Maybe I'll try and make an arrangement with another parent. So I don't have a problem with that. The agent of change principle, I'm very familiar with that as a musician. I know only too well the threat to music venues that have arisen from inappropriate development nearby. But I do appreciate that we do have a lack of information about the risk of bull strike. But I wonder if we pass this, if the football club can assess that, or the golf club, and the two of them can surely come to some arrangement about this. Councillor Barlow raises the issue of sustainability, and normally that's right at the top of my list. But the car use in this case, if there is car use, and I think there probably is, it's only going to be for training and matches. As I've said, there are probably good car sharing arrangements in place. And we know as councillors we have to come here, but if we can car share, then we do. I think it's not the same as putting a housing estate there where people are going to be using cars on a daily basis. The car sharing and the number of trips generated would be intermittent, possibly intense at certain times. But as Councillor Heath has pointed out, there is adequate space on the road and there's no issue from Devon County Council. So I'm very balanced about this. I've thought about it all over the weekend, all the way here, and I still don't quite know, but at the moment I think I'm slightly coming down on the side of approval. I'd like to hear what other members have to say.
Thank you. And I think probably what Councillor Barlow was intending to convey was that it is nonetheless development. And if you allow it in a national landscape, whatever form that takes, you are actually setting some sort of precedent. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Right, Councillor Brown, please.
Can I make a suggestion that we approve this application?
You making a proposal
Yes,
to
I am.
approve?
Yeah.
Is there a seconder, please? Yes, Councillor Hughes seconding. Yeah. Councillor.
Chair,
Well,
we need reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get them in a minute. Councillor Barlow has an amendment to put.
If it's supported, again, I think we should put some sort of thing in there that at the end of the day, if a bull strike survey is required, which someone's going to have to do one, then the netting and cost should come to the people that are putting the application forward, i.e. the football club.
Can we do that?
Chair, we don't even have a proposal at the moment. We've
No,
just
can
got
we
somebody
give
recommend. Can I perhaps assist? And hopefully this will
Reasons
help
for
everybody.
proposing
Right,
approval.
the issue that we've got is that at the moment, officers are saying that we need to have a ball strike assessment carried out in order to be able to properly advise you whether or not this is safe to go ahead. And at the moment, we haven't got that.
No.
Now, if you are minded to go against the officer's advice and you are minded to approve this, what we've got to consider and what the football club's also got to consider is that this decision might be challenged by way of a judicial review. Now, that's an expensive process for everybody who's involved in that. Yeah. And what they would look and they would say, why on earth have you made this decision when you've been told by officers that there's a need for a ball strike assessment to be carried out? What is your rationale and what's your evidential base for making that decision? So at the moment, we've heard reasons given by Councillor Heath as to why it would be appropriate to approve this application. Unfortunately, none of those reasons dealt with the issue of the ball strike assessment. So to try and assist you, if you do want to go down this route, what you have to say in your decision is that you do understand there's an identified risk of ball strikes. You've then got to explain why you disagree with officers on their planning judgment as to why there is a need for a ball strike assessment to be carried out. You can't just ignore this issue. You've got to specifically deal with it. You've got to explain why you believe officers are wrong. You've also then got to say why you believe there's already existing evidence available that identifies the safety hazards and why you don't believe there's any need to obtain a further ball strike assessment. Now, my understanding is there isn't any available evidence. They'll be corrected by the officers if I'm wrong, but you would have to be able to say there's some evidence that we can hang our hats on to say that we're happy with that. We don't need this additional information, but at the moment, we don't seem to have that. You'd also then need to say that you consider that the residual risk of a child or anybody else being hit by a golf ball is acceptable to you, and that's fine. And you'd also need to say that you consider that paragraph MPPF has been addressed in making a decision and how you believe you have addressed that, how you believe that you have taken into account the fact that that paragraph says that the applicant is the agent of change must provide suitable mitigation. You must explain how you believe that this has been satisfied by the applicant at the moment. Now, my understanding is the officer's view is that it hasn't been satisfied. So those are the hurdles you've got to get over, members, if you want to approve this. I say it's very difficult.
Councillor, I think Mr Hunter has explained that very well, and I believe that should there be a judicial review as to why you have approved this, then those councillors should represent this council at the judicial review and give their reasons.
Chair, can we not make
Barlow.
Chair, I've asked and we haven't had an answer. Can we make a condition that if we were to pass it, subject to a bull strike survey being carried out and any mitigating factors need to come back to allowable mitigating factors, a suitable solution could be found that it is allowed. I mean, I know that's an awful lot of if, buts and maybes in there, but again, if you're going to pass this to get over that problem, can we do a condition that says a bull strike survey must be found and suitable mitigation put in place before any works can be started?
So there is a problem with putting on such a condition in that firstly, because the applicants already expressly said that they don't intend to undertake a bull strike assessment. But obviously, yes, that means, and if it's a pre-commencement condition, it has to be agreed by the applicant. We cannot apply pre-commencement conditions without the applicant's agreement. So it would have to be put to the applicant as to whether or not they agree it. The other aspect is that if that study identified the need for example, 18-metre high bull netting, that requires planning permission in its own right, and it's not shown on any plans. So we couldn't, through condition, allow something that actually needs separate planning permission, which is why we've been asking for this information up front. I don't think that we could reasonably apply such a condition. So my view is that if members want to approve this today, it needs to be on the basis of addressing the points that Mr. Hunter has raised, but primarily identifying the fact that it would be on the basis that members don't consider, and they would need to explain why that there is a risk. Therefore, there is no need for this statement that we as officers have recommended, and therefore that members considered there will be no agent of change because there will be no pressure put on the golf club because they consider there is actually no risk, but obviously need to explain why they feel that to be the case.
Can I come back, Chair? Can I- Just very quickly then, at the end of the day, should the motion coming forward in a minute fail, I will be putting forward to defer so that they, and I know we've asked them before, but again, to clearly let people know, everyone, that this isn't the council stopping it, this is their lack of doing a bull strike survey that is causing problems here.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Right. If you go to page 37 of the report and read what health and safety executives say, they say they've got no problem with golf balls. I mean, how do you overcome that one?
Yeah, Mr. McCallum.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Can you just?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the Health and Safety Executive were only being consulted in regards to the potential impact of the development on a major hazard pipeline around the site. They're not commenting on the golf ball safety. They're only interested in and commenting on any potential impact on a gas pipeline across the site.
Right. Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm just reading some other stuff on this, what we're talking about, risk assessments and that. And it states here, it's impossible to totally eliminate the risk of a ball because of the netting height could be 20 metres and still somebody could hit one over the top. So you can never overcome it completely, no matter what you're going to do. So I personally, I don't have a problem with this. That's why I'm seconding the motion to approve.
Councillor Davey.
I'm inclined to support Councillor Barlow's suggestion that we defer this because we just don't know. This is the problem. We do not know what the level of risk is. And that is why the bull strike assessment is required. If it's a remote level of risk and the chances of a kid being hit by a ball are very, very slim, then we can cheerfully go ahead and approve this. But without that information, we are bound to refuse it because we just don't know. And as Mr. Hunter has very cogently pointed out, we are just taking a risk ourselves in doing that. So I feel that it would be best to defer it, and the football club have got to accept that they are the ones. I don't agree, and I'm not a legal expert, but I don't agree that they would be admitting liability for bull strikes if they were to carry out a bull strike assessment. The liability, such as it is, should surely lie with the golf club. But the agent of change principle, as Mr. Hunter has also clearly pointed out, says that it is the person or the developer who is developing the land next to a facility who is responsible.
Not withdraw the application.
So at the moment, I feel deferral would be a better idea and hope that the football club feel that they can do the necessary background work.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, would you be prepared to withdraw your proposal in order to defer this application for an assessment on the grounds of safety?
Like I said, I lived next door to a golf course for 7 years, the
Right,
ninth
then-
hole, and I never had one golf ball come in. So I think you're, you know,
Can you turn your microphone?
Damien? No, mine's all right.
All right. Chair, just to say that's absolutely fine. If you want to put forward a motion for approval against officer recommendation, you don't want to, you know, withdraw that motion, that's fine. But as I've said, you need to give clear reasons then for making that recommendation. And you need to go through all of the points that I've specified. We can go through them one by one if you like, so that you can explain. Because if you can't do that, I tell you now, we will get a challenge by way of a judicial review, and it will not serve anybody's purposes here for being able to deal with that. It'll probably cost a hell of a lot of money, and it's something that we can avoid. But if you want to do that, you need to come up with clear reasons. If you can't, that is the risk, and it will delay everything. But it is entirely up to you. So perhaps we could go through. So do you accept and you understand that there is an identified risk, first of all? In what professional basis do you base that
Put your
on?
microphone on when you speak?
live next door to a golf course for 7 years.
Not this particular site.
Not this one.
Okay.
We had no netting up.
So
It was at
that
the
would
bottom
be
of
your
our garden.
that would be your reason for approving, in that you live next door to a golf course for 7 years,
No golf course.
and that would be a reason to approve this application.
Because the chance of a golf ball coming through there is minimal.
Okay. Shall we go through the rest of the matters?
Yeah.
Because what we can do, hopefully, if Mrs Ormsby can take a note of these reasons that are being put forward, then we can relay them back to members at the end, and then you can decide to vote and whether or not you accept this proposal. So at the moment, you're saying that you do understand that there's an identified risk, and that because you've lived next door to a golf course before, and because you've never been hit, that you don't believe that there's a risk in this case. Is that correct? Okay then. Right, next then. Sorry. You've wandered off.
In the meantime,
Councillor
can I just
Brown,
ask-
Councillor Brown, would you take your seat, please? Yeah, but can you do it from your seat, please? Councillor Brown.
Risk assessment being done.
That's like shutting the stable door, isn't it?
Officers have already explained that there's too many undeterminables at the moment, so that we can't actually impose a condition, because as Mrs Ormsby's explained, the the football club have already indicated that they don't want to carry out a risk assessment, so that's the first hurdle. And as I say, even if one is carried out, we don't know what it will say. So we can't impose a condition if there's no certainty. So then if we're going down this route, which apparently we are, you now turn to explain why you disagree with officers on planning judgment grounds that a ball strike assessment isn't necessary. Why do you believe that's the case?
I've been asked by several members if we can defer it until we get the risk assessment.
So are you withdrawing your proposal?
I'm changing my proposal to we defer it until we get a risk assessment.
So that's already been, so you're accepting the amendment to defer?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Chair, again, just to get some certainty, perhaps Mrs Ormsby could assist me with this. We don't want to defer for an indeterminate period of time. It's for everybody's interest that this is dealt with. Either the football club are going to get this assessment or they're not. Maybe worthwhile, even at this stage, just quickly asking whether they are prepared to do this, because if not, probably the best way forward is just to refuse it on the grounds put forward by officers, and then the football club can appeal it. If that's the case, it doesn't serve anybody's interest. It doesn't.
Would you be quiet, please, or I'll have to adjourn the meeting? We've had quite a bit of disturbance. Disappointing.
As I was saying, members, to my mind, it doesn't serve anybody's interest to defer this if the football club are adamant that they're not going to carry out this risk assessment. You may as well just refuse it, then they can appeal, they can argue that MPPF paragraph 200 doesn't apply, we'll say it does, and an inspector will make and reach a decision. Because at the moment, as I said, I don't see that it benefits anybody just to defer it for 1 or 2 cycles. We're just waiting around if they have no intention whatsoever of doing this. So perhaps we can get some indication then from Mr. Lisk with regards to that. Thank you.
Right.
So I'll start by saying you have a risk assessment. You know, the golf club have produced a risk assessment where they deem that risk from golf balls leaving their site is within a manageable level. You know, that exists not only on that hole, but on all holes across the golf club. And
So,
that is
Mr.
in
Lisk,
writing.
could I stop you there briefly? 2 things. Firstly, the assessment that's being carried out is in relation to the current situation, not the future situation that would be available if this application was given approval. All we want to know from you, is there any point in deferring this? Do you accept what you've heard today, that you need to carry out a ball risk assessment? If you don't, we may as well just decide it based on the evidence that we've got.
So, yeah, so I was under the impression that planning decisions were based on evidence, not lack of evidence. You know, so, you know, there is no evidence that sits in front of you that says golf balls are a risk. You know, there is a single claim in a single letter, and you're basing an entire decision around that. I think secondly, you know, to cut to the point, you know, we have been advised that if we conduct a ball strike survey and put in mitigations or propose mitigations in order to prevent any ball strike from going over, then should that deem to be, you know, unsuitable or, you know, not enough, then it's our liability because we've proposed what mitigations are required. This risk has got to sit with the person who's generating the risk. It's also got to, you know, also the options for the person generating the risk are a lot greater. We talk about a, you know, 80-metre high fence, the entire 200 metres.
Mr. Lisk, sorry, I wanted to give you the opportunity to speak, but I think members now, what you need to take into consideration, you can, despite what Mr. Lisk has said, if you believe that after this meeting he may go away, may take some further advice, and there may be a prospect of him obtaining the ball strike assessment, then you may think with cooler heads that it might be worthwhile to have a deferment to allow that to happen. Alternatively, if you don't think that's likely to be the case, then you may, in my opinion, just proceed to consider the application, all the evidence that's before you, or the lack of evidence that's before you today, and the recommendation from officers at the moment is one of refusal.
Yeah. So it's a simple yes or no. Will you seek a risk assessment, a survey?
I cannot, no. I
right.
cannot.
Thank you.
Chair, can I just ask?
Councillor Heath first.
Thank you, Chair. Isn't it up to the parents to decide risk? We can't.
Carry on, Councillor Heath.
I don't believe in a big brother attitude. The parents are all obviously responsible. They've got children themselves, and they can decide the risk. There's going to be no liability to the council or to anyone else if the parents decide that their children want to play there, and then they might get hit by a stray golf ball, which we've heard is not a high likelihood, but may be a risk. So,
Councillor Heath, we're deciding a planning application. We make that decision. The parents don't.
The risk
Councillor
sorry,
Levine.
Chair, if I can perhaps assist again, try and help again. We're not looking at the risk as whether somebody's going to be hit on the head with a golf ball at the moment, because that's not something for us to assess. What I'm saying at the moment is if you make a decision to approve this without any evidence to back up your decision, you've got a risk of judicial review against you. So that's the risk that I consider to be pertinent at this moment.
Yeah. Councillor Levine.
Could I just ask for clarification, Mr. Hunter? If we decide to approve this, do we get any legal responsibility for any accidents?
Already said.
I don't think that we, as a council, would be held responsible for any accidents that may occur in the future, or anybody being hit with a golf ball. But what I'm saying is that's not my worry, actually, because that's a separate matter. I'm worried now if you make a decision and you don't give justifiable reasons for going against officer recommendation in the same way that I go into you every single time we have a committee, you must give reasons, and you can't ignore that the advice from officers is to get a ball strike assessment. You have to deal with that head on. And when we try to go through each of those individual points, Councillor Brown was struggling. If somebody else wants to give it a better go, then perhaps we could go down that route. But if not, the options as I see it at the moment is defer despite what you've heard from the football club, or deal with it in line with the officer recommendation and refuse. That's your options.
Councillor Barlow.
Just a very quick question, Chair, to the thing. How much does it cost? How much will it cost approximately the football club to do an appeal? Not a lot. How much does an appeal cost? Is there any cost to
About 2,000.
It could run into the thousands. It depends whether it's dealt with by way of a written representations or an informal hearing or an inquiry. I would suspect it would be dealt with by way of an inquiry. So that can be quite an expensive matter.
Thank you. Now, we have a proposal now. The amendments become a proposal to defer. We had a seconder, Councillor Davey, Councillor Barlow proposed it. So do you still want that to stand?
Yes, Chair, as long as it is a deferral for a maximum of 3 months. I mean, I think with August coming up, most people go on holiday then anyway, or it appears in this sort of world, which will give them then 2 months to get a ball strike
right.
survey.
You withdraw?
I'm going to withdraw seconding that because it is pretty clear that the football club have absolutely no intention of carrying this out. It was said that we base our decisions on evidence, and that's exactly the point. We don't have any evidence one way or the other. And I think Mr. Hunter is clearly pointing out that if we make this decision today, or the decision to approve, we would be doing so without the evidence that it is safe.
I'm very happy, then I'll withdraw as well, because again, we've offered the football club the chance to do this. They'd rather go to appeal. I also take Councillor Mr. Hunter's point that appeal will probably be the best way.
Do we have a proposal, please? Was that a proposal?
A proposal to support officer's recommendation, refuse on the
Thank you.
basis
Is there a
of what they do.
seconder, please? Councillor Davey? Right, Damien?
I will second that one.
Could I just say that the club just lost me because taking an intransigent position like that doesn't help us in the least. In fact, I think
agree.
that I will have, unfortunately, after their announced statement now, I can't oppose this motion.
Thank you. Right. We've had a proposer and a seconder. Can we take a vote then? To support the officer's recommendation to refuse? Show of hands, please.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
To those against? 4. And the recommendation is upheld. Right, we'll take a break until 25:02. Thank you. Is he the reporter there? I got given an interview. Yeah, looks like it.
Do you want me to come with you? Do you want me to come with you for the interview?
Some what?
you want me to be with you for the interview, or are you happy?
Yeah, you can, I don't
I
mind.
mean,
Yes.
don't want to push in.
No,
into-
that's fine.
What time until?
No, that's fine, because you'll have
What
another
time is the break until?
25 to. sorry. Agenda item 9, planning applications 260478, full application 42 Salterton Road, Exmouth, pages 141 to 160. And this is the Cranford Club, I think. Yes. So Mrs. Ormsby will present the report.
Good morning.
Afternoon.
Yes, I was going to say, actually. Good afternoon. Good
Time
afternoon.
flies.
So, Wendy, if we could have the slides. Thank you. So this application, Wendy, could we have it without the people? Thanks. So this application is at 42 Salterton Road, which is the Cranford Sports Club at Exmouth, and it's construction of a new exercise studio with wet changing facilities, construction of a new tennis courts with floodlights, and refurbishment of tennis courts with additional floodlights. So this is a Google image of the site itself. So you can see the blue line shows the wider Cranford Club site boundary, and the red line shows the land which is subject to this particular planning application. The club at the moment has 7 existing tennis courts, and there is a separate application which will be heard after this application, which seeks redevelopment of 5 of the tennis courts. However, that's a separate application. This application itself doesn't actually propose the loss of anything. It is purely focused on the area in red, and has, as I said, the implications of this does not mean that the others would be lost, because that's a separate application yet to be considered. So the proposal is to refurbish 2 tennis courts here and here, and to provide a new tennis court with floodlights. It is also for a new studio building, which will be going on the site here, sort of yoga, Pilates type facility. The swimming pool at the back here, there's proposals for a swimming pool changing area to serve the swimming pool. The access and parking remain unchanged. And this image just helps to give an indication of the relationship of the site with surrounding housing development. You can see it's contained, it's got housing adjoining the western southern boundaries and wrapping around the east. And just pointing out here, this, actually that's not relevant for this one. So that just shows more clearly the defined application site boundary. The site's within the built-up area boundary of Exmouth, and the Cranford Sports Club is an established sports club that's been in the community for quite some years. This shows the proposed layout of the site. So this shows the refurbished tennis courts, because there's, I think there's only 2 tennis courts which are sort of fully in use and in good condition at the moment at the club. So this will propose 2 fully upgraded to LTA standard courts here, and a new court here. These 2 courts already have floodlighting, but that will be there'll be new floodlighting proposed for all 3 courts. Here's the location of the yoga Pilates studio, and this blue is the location of the wet changing. This shows the elevations of the outdoor studio. So you'll note, so this is the west sort of rear elevation, and then 2 side elevations here, and then the east inward looking elevation has got glazed doors along the front. And there's no windows in the east and side elevations, and that's to prevent overlooking out towards neighbouring boundaries, and also that helps to retain sound within the building because there's no openings in that direction. The building itself, it's approximately, it's 26.4 metres long, 3.3 metres deep, 10 metres deep, and the height at the front is 3.3 metres, and it slopes down towards the boundary where it's 2.9 metres, covered in vertical cladding. And one of the reasons put for creating this is to provide an additional studio space that's away from the main building. It's sort of designed as a well-being type studio for those quieter leisure activities that can take place in a quieter location. And this is the wet changing room located near the swimming pool, and that is 10 metres by 4 metres by 2.8 metres. This is showing the proposed new tennis court in its layout, and the tennis fencing surrounding, and you can see there relatively the height of the floodlights to be provided. And these are views around the site. So this is the view from the swimming pool looking towards Heatherdale here and Cranford View. And you can see that there is already floodlighting throughout the site. So the sort of the precedent or the principle of floodlighting is already established on the site. And it's over here that the new tennis court, and over here where the yoga Pilates studio would go. So this is showing here where the site of the studio building will be, with Heatherdale, houses on Heatherdale beyond, houses with Heatherdale. So yeah, this is the boundary here, the green fence. This is where the studio building will go, and the tennis court will be going in here. Apologies. And this is looking across to Delderfield Gardens. And this is again Delderfield Gardens beyond the boundary. So this is where the yoga studio will be, and tennis court in the foreground here. And this is looking towards Cranford View. And this is existing sports pitches and the swimming pool, which is in this structure here, the facilities to go on the end here. And this is looking back up at the swimming pool and the main building and the changing facilities to go at the edge there. And that's just a closer view here of where the changing facilities would be located. So the key issues here is effectively this application seeks to improve the sports offer at Cranford Sports Centre with an overall aim of improving the long-term viability of the sports club. There is support from policy RC1, which is retention of land for sport and recreation in the local plan. And the Lawn Tennis Association have also expressed their support for the proposal that relates to the provision of an additional and upgrading to a higher quality standard, the tennis courts that are going to be within the site. So the key issues really is the impact on neighbours in this instance. And there have been concerns raised, so concerns about potential noise from the yoga and Pilates studio. We've had comments from Environmental Health and initially asking for noise impact assessments, but following the submission of further details, the Environmental Health are now satisfied, subject to a noise condition to control the noise levels of things like air conditioning units that you might have, and a condition to say that the doors and windows are to remain closed when the building is in use other than for access and egress, to make sure that if there is any music played within there, that it is retained within that. So subject to those and regarding the studio, Environmental Health are satisfied. The new tennis court, again, whilst there is a precedent of floodlighting on the site, there's going to be floodlighting on part of the site where currently there isn't. So floodlighting closer to some houses that currently don't have it so close. So again, there are conditions, lighting conditions proposed, which would look to make sure that I think you'd have a better situation than you do now with more modern lighting, which is able to be far more focused. It has less light spill, so potentially less obtrusive than the light that is currently existing on the site. And also hours of use restricted for the tennis courts as well. So, and also mindful of the fact that this is an established sports centre, there is already the presence of tennis courts activity taking place within that site. So on that basis, the officer view is that impact on neighbours, subject to those conditions, is acceptable and wouldn't have a significant adverse impact on neighbours. There's also been some concerns raised about drainage. However, soakaways are proposed to drain the new tennis court and the new building, so subject to that and details of that being provided, there is no objection. So on the base, so the view here is that this is supported by policy. It's providing improved sporting facilities within an urban area, highly accessible, established club, and that any adverse impacts on a neighbouring amenity can be satisfactorily mitigated. And as such, this is recommended for approval, subject to conditions that are summarised on the slide in front. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have the speakers, two speakers. The applicant, Ollie Swain. Would you like to go up to the lectern? You had 3 minutes, Mr. Swain.
The right-hand button.
Right-hand button.
So good afternoon, Chair and members, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm Ollie Swain, I'm the Chief Executive of LED Community Leisure, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the Cranford directors for this application, in support of this application. Our point is simple, really. This proposal protects community sport and leisure, funds much needed improvements, and properly addresses the planning issues that have been raised. For 148 years, Cranford has supported tennis, swimming, fitness, well-being and social connection in Exmouth. It now needs investment to remain operationally strong, financially resilient and relevant to the community it serves. As the officer's report explains, this application is linked to but separate from the outline application for 8 new homes. The housing proposal provides the funding, which is secured through a legal agreement. This application delivers a new yoga and exercise studio, a replacement tennis court, 2 upgraded tennis courts, pool changing facilities and significant internal refurbishment. This is a clear deliverable investment in Cranford's future, secured for the club and the wider community with full support from the LTA. We recognise residents' concerns about drainage, noise, lighting and ecology. These matter and residents are right to seek reassurances around how these impacts will be managed. The officer's report confirms these technical issues have been addressed. Noise and lighting concerns specifically can be managed through conditions following the Environmental Health Officer's recommendations. That is the purpose of this process, to hear those concerns, test the evidence and put proper controls in place. The Section 106 agreement is vital too. It secures £535,000 for these community leisure improvements, with £260,000 of that ring-fenced for the tennis courts alone. The funding will be paid before the housing development starts, will be held by Exmouth Town Council and will only be released for agreed works, costs and timescales. LED also has a key role in this. Our local and experienced team is ready to take operational responsibility and carry some of the financial risk. This is not a choice between development and community leisure. It is a chance to combine both and secure community leisure for the long term in Exmouth. Without this development and funding, members, families, schools, charities and community groups across the district may be affected. The officer's report sets out the planning balance quite clearly. The benefits are real, significant and secured, while impacts can be managed through conditions and legal agreement. For these reasons, I respectfully ask members to support officers' recommendations and approve this application so Cranford can serve Exmouth and East Devon for many more years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now the ward member, Councillor Nick Cookway. You've 5 minutes, Nick.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try not to be that long. Since I was elected, I've been concerned and involved with some of the issues regarding the Cranford Club. As we have ascertained, it's a very well-established club, but has gone through some hard times in recently. The investment in the new tennis courts and facilities is greatly welcomed. This is a result of a lot of work in the background with not only Sport England but the Lawn Tennis Association, and I thank the Senior Leisure Officer for his hard work in bringing the club to this point. I think the club is now on a much more sustainable footing, which is very important because that was not the case previously, and this new investment I'm sure will help not only to keep the club in a sustainable form but also provide the facilities that the neighbourhood requires, and I'm therefore very happy to support this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nick. Well, the Cranford Club has been there as long as I remember. Before that was a rugby ground when I was about 5. Right, members, any questions? Councillor Barlow?
Just a question for the officers, please. We're always told, obviously, we have to use reasons for passing things. You quote RC1, and I just wonder if you could explain to me how this actually RC1 applies to this. Because again, I presume the one you're going to say is number 2 on that. Sports and recreational facilities can best be retained and enhanced through the redevelopment of a small part of the site. And that is obviously specifically put in there that losing any leisure facilities in a town, we've just had the one previously. We've just spent 4 hours arguing that we want to put a sports facility outside the town because there's no facilities inside the town, no land to put those facilities on. And here we are, halving the amount of leisure facilities to put some houses in there to improve, I know, the facilities there. Surely that is the job of the Lawn Tennis Association or others to pay for this, not losing it. Once it's lost, you'll never get it back. And what are you going to do then? We're about to put 1,500 new houses into Exmouth, which is going to increase demand. Where are you going to put those facilities? Are we then going to go into the AOM bit of the national landscape and start building out there, making it unsustainable? I just find it unbelievable that this follows the one we've just had.
I could respond to those, although I think those comments probably relate more to the following application.
Yeah.
Because this is not actually proposing the loss of anything. This is only proposing new facilities.
Well, again, they are tied, whichever way you want to look at it. And much as I agree with that, you are still saying that you are losing the other pitches round it. Or not.
I mean, I reckon, yes, they are linked. But this one, wouldn't be appropriate to refuse this on the grounds of loss of tennis courts, because this is not proposing the loss of tennis courts. That is the one that follows.
My apologies.
Okay.
And add to that, we do have the East Devon Tennis Centre, which wasn't in existence when the Cranford Club was formed. And we also have tennis courts at Fear Park and down on the Mare.
Oh, in which case, let's knock the whole lot of it down.
We got quite a bit, really. And the East Devon Tennis Centre was an application by this council. So we are quite well served. But obviously, if they want to carry on existing as a sports club, something's got to go. And over the years, I think it was Delderfield Gardens, which is close by, and Regency Crescent have been built. They've sold off parcels of land over many years. I see the ward member is nodding, so you remember that.
20 years' time, then none of it will be there.
Well, they will, I think. It's under new management now, I understand. Is that right? Yes. And so there's much more of a grip on it now. Right, anybody else, please? Any questions? Right, then we move into debate, members. Ollie?
I'm inclined to just cut to the chase and propose approval. It's a much needed facility. It's very popular. It's in a highly sustainable location, unlike the last one. So we should be very cautious about comparing like for like. This is provision of extended facility. I had some concerns about light spill from the floodlights, but it sounds as though that's all been addressed. So I'm very happy to propose approval.
Yeah. You seconded?
I want to
Councillor
second it.
Devine? Yeah, okay. Second. Been proposed and seconded. Can we move to the vote? All those in favour? Any against? I think that was unanimous. Yeah, that is carried. Is it? Oh, Councillor Barlow abstained. Thank you. So that is carried. Where's my script gone? Have you got my script? Oh, no. Right, item 10. 251518 outline, Cranford Sports Club 42 Salterton Road, pages 161 to 187. Recommendation to approve with conditions subject to a section 106 agreement to secure financial obligations towards sports provision and the habitat mitigation and conditions. Right, Wendy.
So this is an application very much related to the scheme that we you have just resolved to approve. And this is an outline application for the erection of 8 dwellings with seeking to agree the details of access, layout and scale with landscaping and appearance reserved for future consideration. So, this is the site that we were just looking at in here, and this application relates to 5 tennis courts on the south-eastern corner of Cranford Sports Club. And the reason that these are linked is that the funds for the future investment of the improved facilities at Cranford Sports Club that include the upgraded tennis courts, so that you've got fewer tennis courts, but those that you have got are of a higher standard than it is currently there. The additional yoga studio, and also there will be other improvements, internal improvements, not specified in the previous application because they don't need planning permission, which is improvements internally to the sports club. So the intention is that the funding, effectively a significant proportion of the land sale from this property will be reinvested in the Cranford Sports Club. And there's been an identified need in terms of viability concerns at the club, of the need to do this, to keep the club at the right standard, to maintain users and to move it forward into the, into future uses. So that's the sort of the background to the application. And again, this shows that the red line shows that land party to this application. And again, we can see the relationship with adjoining housing. And access to this will be via Cranford View, which is this road coming down the side here. And whilst we've got this up, I will just point out this building here, which is the ballet school, because there have been some concerns raised about the fact that there is sometimes overspill parking from the ballet school on the road. And some concerns have been raised about whether the access road is suitable for these additional houses, having regard to existing pressures. So that shows again more clearly the red line application site. This is a highways and site levels plan. So what this is showing here is the layout of the internal access road for the site and the visibility displays onto Cranford View. This shows vehicle tracking to show how larger vehicles, refuse vehicles, etc., would be able to enter the site, turn within the head, the turning head, and exit the site. And whilst we're looking at highways, so as I said, there have been concerns raised. So you're talking about 8 additional houses, so the additional traffic from the 8 houses. And as I mentioned, there's been some concerns raised about parking pressures and also visibility from the access and visibility from the access of Cranford View out onto Salterton Road. The Highway Authority have commented on this and they raised no objections. They're satisfied with the visibility displays. And each dwelling has a single garage and at least parking for 2 additional on-plot parking spaces. So there should be no reason for overspill parking onto Cranford View from this development. It should be self-sufficient in terms of parking provision. This is showing the drainage strategy, which is just showing drainage within the road here, which is basically SUDS-based drainage scheme. And then this is the site plan. So because access and layout and scale are fixed, that means that the footprint of these buildings is being agreed today and the exact site. So what you see here, this site plan would be agreed effectively. Many other outlines, it's just the access, but we are actually agreeing siting. So you can see again here the garages that are on plot that I mentioned here, and then the parking provision within the forecourts of the houses. You can see that the plot sizes are, relative to the character of the area. The plot sizes are sort of commensurate in size in terms of sort of typical house sizes. I mean, again, if we're comparing with neighbours to the east here, house size is actually probably slightly smaller, but adequate sized gardens and adequate on-site parking. In terms of how they relate to neighbours, so these obviously are all well set away from existing housing, as is this one. Where you've got a slightly tighter relationship is these 2 houses on the southern boundary. And whilst there's established vegetation on the boundary, it will still be necessary when we get the reserve matters in for appearance to look at how those first floor windows are being managed to make sure that there isn't going to be any unacceptable levels of overlooking because of the proximity to boundaries there. But that, as I said, is something that can be addressed at reserve matters stage. But in all other respects, it's felt that impact on neighbours in terms of loss of light, for example, this is north, the site is north of these neighbours, so again, less potential for loss of light. Obviously, these are on the eastern side, but I think set far enough away so that they'd be, and combined with the vegetation on the boundary, so there'd be no significant loss of sort of morning sunlight from these to the dwellings located to the west. This is then looking from the proposed access point northwest towards Salterton Road, and you can just see there one of the access points to the ballet school. They have a sort of in-out arrangement. This is looking southeast along Cranford View, and you can see the floodlights in the distance of the sports club. This is looking from the access point into the site. This is looking from the south, from the entrance across to tennis courts. These are looking across at dwellings in Heatherdale. looking, so again, we've got the properties in Heatherdale here, Cranford View to the left. That's again looking towards Cranford View here, Heatherdale properties on the right. So what it does show you is the current boundary treatments, so relatively mature hedges along there present. And that's from the site looking towards the entrance, looking north. So Cranford View properties on the right, and up there is the ballet building. And this is Cranford View behind the fence to the left. And yeah, looking towards the main body of the site here. And that's again looking down from the south in from the site, what would be the site entrance. So the key issue here is the loss of tennis courts and the impact on neighbour amenity and highway issues that have been raised. So policy RC1, which was referenced in terms of the earlier application, does address retention of land for sport and recreation. And what that policy specifically states is that proposals that would result in the loss of open space currently or previously used for recreation and sports uses will not be permitted unless, and then they run through criteria. So the first one is alternative provision of equivalent community benefit is made and will be appropriately laid out by the applicant as a replacement. So in the context here, there is a significant sum, I think £575,000, which I've got that slightly wrong. I've got it in the next page. 535, which would be paid towards, well, in fact, we can just go here. This sets out what the contributions would be. So 535 paid, and that would be £260,000 ring-fenced for the 2 refurbished and additional court to a specification agreed with the Lawn Tennis Association, and those courts to be completed, delivered within 18 months of commencement or before first occupation, whichever is the earliest. And that's obviously only 1 additional tennis court when we're losing 5. So we're still losing 4 tennis courts. However, the Lawn Tennis Association have commented on this, and they take the view that having regard to existing provision in the area, that they don't object to this. In fact, they support the application because they think it's better to have 3 good quality courts rather than the 7 that are there that are, for the most part, I think some unusable and generally not in a very good state of repair. Further to that, there's a £275,000 fee which will go to additional sports improvements. So that's excluded from the tennis court. So that could be providing the yoga studio, the changing rooms, general refurbishment works within the sports club. So overall, putting money in towards improving the sports offer within the site, notwithstanding the fact that the actual size of the site will be diminishing. So it's considered that it meets that part of the policy. There is an acknowledgement that sports and recreational facilities can be best retained and enhanced through the redevelopment of a small part of the site. Obviously, there is, whether you deem this to be a small part of the site, and also mindful of the fact that the planning history does show that Cranford Sports Club has previously effectively sold off land for investment in the club. But again, we're looking at this as an application on its own, and it is felt that looking at the club in its current situation, the current viability levels of the club, if this money is not invested in the club, that overall that releasing the land effectively to housing will be in the interests of the club long term. So effectively, it is considered that this application is supported by policy RC1. I've mentioned previously the issue about highways and how the officer view is that the highway impact is going to be acceptable. Again, we've looked at neighbour amenity, the need to be careful when we're looking at reserve matters, just to make sure that we keep that there's no unacceptable levels of overlooking, but in all other respect, the impact on neighbours it can be acceptable. Drainage details need to be agreed, but I'm confident that an acceptable solution will be possible, and that is covered by condition. And there's no technical objections to this. There were some issues raised by our ecologist about potential need for survey of some sheds that are to be removed, but the ecologists have come back and said that they're satisfied with the additional information that's been provided. And so again, subject to conditions, they raise no objection to the proposal. So the recommendation is to adopt the appropriate assessment and to approve, subject to the applicant entering into heads of terms for the mitigating measures for the improved sports facilities. There was reference in the report to also requiring habitat mitigation contribution to be paid. That's actually been paid up front, so that won't need to go into the section 106. And then subject to conditions as set out in the report and summarised before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Right, objectors, John Jacobs, please. You have 3 minutes, Mr. Jacobs. Right hand button.
Chair, members of the committee, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is John Jacobs. I'm a retired chartered architect. I live at 8 Cranford View and wish to object to the plan application. While I want to make one point clear that from the outset that we're not opposed to the principle of residential development on the site. In fact, we would welcome a scheme that helps secure the long-term future of Cranford Sports Club, which is a valued community facility. However, I believe that the proposal represents overdevelopment of the site. It introduces problems that could be avoided through a less intensive and more carefully considered layout. For example, reducing the number of dwellings would create more space for a properly designed sustainable drainage solution. I've submitted detailed written objections to the planning department, but the concerns raised by myself and my fellow Cranford View residents have not been properly addressed by the planning officer's report. There are so many issues with this application, but with the time available, I'll just highlight 3. Firstly, the accuracy of the submitted information. Different drawings and reports show different layouts. Key landscape features have been omitted, including adjacent off-site trees, root protection areas, and existing hedgerows. In addition, the application red light boundary does not include all of the land required to fulfil the proposed development. Secondly, the visibility display shown on the plans cannot be achieved without removing the existing hedge to the south of Cranford View, yet the hedge has simply been omitted from the application drawings. The proposed road narrowing results in the loss of existing on-street parking for residents, visitors and users of the Cranford Ballet Studio. The loss of that amenity has an impact and has not been properly assessed either within the application or within the planning officer's report. Finally, the impact on residents' amenity. Please look at the proposed road in relationship to the boundary at number 17 Cranford View. The proposed road is only just over 1 metre away from the rear fence, but together with the changes in the ground levels, this makes the 6-foot fence 7.5 inches smaller than the 6-foot that exists. Therefore, it results in overlooking, loss of privacy and reduced security to number 17 Cranford View. In conclusion, I believe the information supporting the application is inconsistent, inaccurate and incomplete, and as a result, the committee cannot be confident that it has been properly understood and for the development impacts. I therefore respectfully ask the committee to refuse the application. There is a straightforward solution, I believe, though. By adjusting the layout, reducing the number of dwellings from 8 to 7, these concerns could be substantially addressed while still delivering housing to support the future of the Cranford Club.
Thank you. To the second. That was, thank you very much. Now the architect, Parade Warden, ARA Architecture.
Thank you, Chair and members, for letting me speak to you today. This application is for construction of 8 new dwellings at the Cranford Club in Exmouth. The site currently contains 5 unused and surplus to requirement tennis courts. The site is within the built-up area boundary of Exmouth, and as clearly stated in the case officer's conclusion within the committee report, it is a sustainable location. Therefore, there is presumption in favour of development per local planning policy and the NPPF. The site is located within an area designated in your local plan for sports and recreation, though as this is tied to the previous application which was discussed, you will see that the development of this land is crucial to the survival of the Cranford Club, and this application ties a Section 106 agreement to the permission for monies used from the sale of the land to be used for this business. The officer's report clearly covers the loss of recreational land in the executive summary, so I won't go back over these matters, but of course we fully agree with the officer's comments and their recommendation for approval. The development has been designed to create a new independent road access to the site, and things have been positioned within to reduce the impact on adjacent properties and the existing use of the Cranford Club. This is an outline application seeking approval only for access, layout and scale. All other matters will be dealt with via reserved matters application at a later date. As explained already, the main concerns raised during consultation period related to highways, drainage and the loss of the existing tennis courts. To respond to these points, the Highway Authority support the application. They've stated that the development will not create adverse additional traffic. South West Water are happy with the proposed drainage strategy, and the Lawn Tennis Association are happy with the long-term retention of the remaining tennis courts at the Cranford Club and the longevity that this development will offer the club as a whole. So just to reiterate, this application is supported by all consultees, including District Highways Authority, South West Water, the LTA, Environmental Health, East Devon Ecology, East Devon Tree Officer, and the District Planning Authority, of course. The development will provide longevity and security to the Cranford Club as a much needed community sports facility, while also providing 8 new dwellings in Exmouth, which are much needed, particularly in the context of the Council's acknowledged 5-year housing land supply shortfall. So we therefore confirm we're happy with the recommendation in the officer's report and would encourage members to follow their officer's recommendation and approve this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, we have the ward member next. Questions later. Nick.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. So, as we mentioned previously, with the previous application, this particular application before you is important to allow the sustainable future of the Cranford Club. And I think it's important for the committee to understand that there is a very real risk that the Cranford Club may no longer exist without this application going through. That would be a really serious loss to the local community. I understand the points made by committee members in the previous application. It is a tricky balancing act we have to do here. We don't want to lose important facilities, but they will be invested in and they will be improved. That said, the application for the housing and the development of the housing in this application does leave me with a little bit of concern, which is why I lodged an objection. If you look at the photographs of Cranford View, you can see it's only a single track road. It's not, there are no white lines down the centre of it, it's a very narrow road. If you're having more housing there, I do wonder about access, and I do worry about emergency vehicle access is that being thought out? Do we need to really consider that? Never mind visitor parking. Whatever happens with parking, it'll never be enough anyway, as the usual case in Exmouth. I also have concerns about the layout. I absolutely agree with the objector just now. I do wonder whether 8 plots on this site is too many. To me, the design is not really an issue. It not really attractive. Let's be quite honest about it. These are not going to be affordable houses. These are going to be very upmarket houses that will sell probably to people moving in from outside the town, probably, and therefore the developer will undoubtedly make and clear his costs with this development. So whether we have 7 houses or 8 houses, as I think immaterial, I think 7 would be better. I agree with the objector, and I am a little bit concerned because the officer did point out on one part of the plot, 2 of the houses may have concerns about loss of privacy or overlooking. Now that is a real issue within Exmouth Little, and we've had real problems with applications where loss of privacy and overlooking have been serious issues which have led to applications being refused, and I'm always very keen to make sure that we avoid such problems. So I do support the club in its aspirations for its long-term future. I think that's very important, but I do have some concerns about layout and access. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Members, you had a question for the agent, Councillor Barlow, did you? No? Any questions then?
Yeah, I've got questions.
Yeah.
So, why is the 106 only for £535,000? I don't quite understand. The club is selling the land, 8 building plots. That means £69,000 a building plot. What happens to the rest of the money? Does it go into a pot then to keep the club going for another few years? Or what happens to that? So that's the first thing. And again, why aren't we asking for a considerable amount more? Going back to your RC1, I wasn't allowed to ask it on the last one because nothing had changed. Therefore, on this one, you are losing 100% of the leisure area. So therefore, it does not comply to RC1. So therefore, please don't put that forward as a reason for it, because that isn't right. And even if you were to take, as I wanted on the last one, the whole site, it's not a small area. Just because we've got lots of tennis courts, have you got lots of paddle? The new sport that's coming along in Exmouth and everywhere else in the country that everyone wants to play, have you got plenty of paddle courts? Because if you haven't, must be a prime area for that. So my thing is, again, I just go back to the thing. Once you lose the leisure facility, the land for it, I'm not talking about keeping perfect tennis courts or anything. Once you lose the land, you can never get it back. What are you going to do then with all the new people? 1,800, 1,500 plus houses that we're putting into the area. So that really is, and the money is an important one. The average cost of a building plot in Exmouth goes from £85,000 a plot up to 400,000. This is not a cheap area. This is an upmarket area, and I would have said you were talking a minimum 150 to 200,000 pound a plot. So where's the rest of the money going? I don't even know who owns the club or anything like that. I know East Devon are going to run it, possibly. Oh, not East Devon. LED are going to run it. That's great. But if are we selling this to someone to make a profit? Because at the end of the day, the club has, as you keep saying, hived off this, hived off that, got smaller and smaller and smaller. And in a minute, another 30 years, and although you say we're not going to be here, the whole point of planning is to plan for the future, not for us now. That's fixing, that's putting sticky plasters over things, which is basically what this is doing. We'll sell off half the club land, and we'll stick a plaster on this bit of it, and we'll put a bit on there, and we'll put a yoga studio, which is great for a select market that likes yoga. That's great. Well, they can go into yoga from tennis, so why can't they go into paddle sports and other things? I just think you need to be aware again, once you get rid of this, once we put houses on it, that's it.
Thank you. Can you answer that?
So, on the matter of what about, you know, is this all the money? Was there more money? I could answer, but I suspect that the applicant could answer it better, if that's okay with you, Chair.
Yeah. Would you like to answer that? Sorry, can you go to the microphone? Can you say your name, please?
My name is Joanna Fowler of Eagle Investments, and I have an option to purchase the land subject to planning. We started this about 3.5 years ago, and the Cranford Club went out to tender. At that stage, the banks, this is televised, isn't, am I allowed to say this? Okay. They were in debt to the tune of a bit over £420,000. So when I went into tender, I agreed to pay off that because the banks were about to foreclose. So this is 2.5 years ago. They now, I have subsidised them with a view to it would form part of the monies that I would pay for it, the tune of about £630,000, and that is their debt to me alone. And there are other small debts that, you know, it's not to do with me. So this represents about between 80 and 85% of the net funds that the Cranford will get from the sale, should you decide to go with the recommendations.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Barlow? No.
Oh.
Can you? Yeah. Can you turn your microphone off,
please?
Again, so you're paying £1 million plus then for the site, obviously. Again, you're saying that. Again, this isn't really a planning thing, but I'm just saying to you, I'm just trying to point out to the members here that the money coming in, is it right? Where's it going? And £60,000 you're paying per site. Is that right? Is it £535,000 in total? Is that correct, or are you paying a considerable amount more than that?
I am paying more than that, but after the debt that I have subsidised, so that the banks would not foreclose on them. So I paid off all the Cranford Club's debt in order that we could, or that they would not foreclose, and we could go through this process. This process, like a lot of things, you know, takes a while. It has taken a lot of work to get an understanding and to ensure that the development of this application is policy compliant. And so what we are saying, I mean, I recognise that it would be useful information, although I'm not sure it's planning, but I am looking at paying approximately 1.4 million. Nearly £650,000 of that has already been paid out to the banks and for the running costs. There are also planning costs that they need to pay. There is works that have had to be carried out on the Cranford Club during this process. So when you look at that, the £535,000 represents a considerable amount of the net proceeds that the Cranford Club will get.
All right. Thank you. Any more questions, please?
There was a previous question.
Oh, what was that?
Sorry, Councillor Barlow, I think you were also asking about policy RC1 and whether or not it's compliant with it.
Well, I was pointing out that it's not compliant with it on the policy that we're written down. And we are always told that we must have a policy to hang our things on.
Yes.
And if we haven't, we can't do it, because it could be judicially reviewed.
Okay, so but the officer view, is it, when you look at policy RC1, there's 3 points, 1, 2 or 3, and they are or, not ands. So my view is that it does comply with alternative provision of equivalent community benefit is made available and will be appropriately laid out by the applicant as replacement. The officer view being that you're getting the upgraded tennis courts, you're getting the additional sports facilities and investment in a club to maintain its long-term viability. So the officer view is it does comply with point 1 of policy RC1.
why is it equivalent if we've got 7 clubs, seven pitches, we're going down to 3. We're losing an area, and as I said, once you lose the area, it can never be replaced.
So it's not like for like, I agree. It's not 7 courts here and 7 courts there, but it's equivalent in terms of the wider sporting community benefit, because you're getting 3 better courts.
Yeah.
Because of those 7 courts that are there, the majority are not usable. You saw in the photographs, they're very poor quality. And you're getting a yoga studio and swimming pool, wet changing facilities, and other upgrades. So looking at the whole package, it's not like for like provision, but I don't believe it needs to be. I think it's equivalent in terms of providing sporting facilities for the community.
Councillor Davey, then Councillor Heath. You have questions?
Yeah, the issue of overlooking, will that be addressed at reserved matters stage?
Yes, it would. So we would have to look at the plots close, where there is close proximity in terms of first floor windows, and looking at the design. I mean, are they even, is a full 2-storey property going to be appropriate? Might it have a type of a roof that, I mean, I'm thinking out loud here, a mansard style where you've got more Velux windows, or the room arrangement in such a way that you haven't got bedrooms looking out in those directions. So yeah, that's what we'll be looking at reserved matters stage. But the ground floor is obviously less of a concern, because you can always mitigate that with boundaries, planting, fencing, etc.
Yeah. Councillor Heath.
Thank you, Chair. Has a feasibility study been done to see how much, if the 7 courts were made decent, how much additional revenue that could generate, along with the yoga facilities and so on? And is there scope for development of more members if you increased the decency of the courts from 3 to 7?
Again, that's probably not a question for officers. It'd be through the chair if she wants to put it out to the applicant.
Yeah. Can the applicant answer that? As far as I'm aware, the club have been struggling, so they probably don't have the money to invest. Right hand.
Hello, I'm Jill Anderson. I'm the chair of the Cranford Club. Can I say that we've spent a long time working with Sport England and the LTA on the feasibility of what can be done to make this club sustainable. It's a community amateur sports club. We're very limited on the amount of fees that we can charge and things like that. So LTA have done their own data survey, and they said that within a 10-minute drive of the Cranford, there are 29 courts that can be used. At the Cranford, we have 800 members. We have 20 that play tennis. We have another 10 who work on a pay-as-you-go situation. But the problem that we've got is, with the weather that we've had recently, people go to the LED Indoor Tennis Centre because they know that they can get a court, they can play at the right time, etc. People are time poor these days. Does that answer your question? They really aren't required. 7 courts are not needed for 20 people. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Can you turn the microphone off, please? Thank you. Right, any more questions, members? Yes, Yehudi.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know, I get the feeling that if we're going to reduce the number of plots from 8 to 6, we're going to assuage a lot of the objections. I presume that will also have a knock-on effect on the amount of money that will become available. Has anybody looked at the possibility of reducing the number of plots?
So we've got an application before us for 8. The officer view is that the layout indicates that you can fit 8 on the site, appropriately. So we haven't gone beyond that because we feel that it's acceptable as submitted.
Yeah, and it is in keeping with other developments in the area. They are very nice properties. Members, any more questions? And can we move into debate, please? Who'd like to start? Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. I have no issue with the way the layout is, the outline layout, whatever. I've got no problem with that. I've got no problem with overlooking. That can be dealt with. My only problem that I have with this, if we keep going back to, we're supposed to plan for the future, not plan for putting a sticking plaster on something and solving a problem now. And I realise money is always an issue, but once you lose leisure land, you're never going to get it back. And in the previous application, I know we shouldn't look at that, but the reason we had to look at that is not, I'm not saying they're the same sites. The reason we had to look at that is because there was no land left in the centre of Honiton to provide football pitches. Now, this is a smaller site for tennis courts, but this is exactly the same. Yes, there's lots of tennis courts, but there's lots of other sports that people want to play. Once you lose it, otherwise, why do we have RC1? Why do we have it there to protect it? And again, your thing with your number one, it complies with one bit of it. Well, it doesn't really, because the next one says, sports and recreational facilities can best be retained and enhanced through the development of a small part of the site. So that is covering or you're improving what you've got there by selling just a small part of the site. But we're not. We're selling well over half of it to do this. And if they failed previously for the last 30 years, keep selling bits off, what difference is it going to make? Why will it be sustainable now? And for £500,000, are you going to provide all of the things you're doing? Is it just a sum, or is it actually to provide those buildings, or just a sum? I think it's just the sum of money. What happens when they run out of money and it costs £700,000 to do it? Yeah, that's what always happens with building things. Oh, yeah, we can do it. Oh, no, we can't. And we've run over budget. And they don't have the money to do that. Do we sell the rest of it then? Because we've already said we don't need the tennis courts. There's 29 of them in 20-minute driving. So why not knock it all down?
Thank you. Councillor Levine and Councillor Davey.
That is one argument that I heard just now, which is convincing. Tennis you can play indoors, and people prefer to play indoors. Football you can't, not to the same way. So I think I can't see that we're necessarily losing all the sport facilities as we're being told. And I personally think that supporting the club, making sure that it survives, is more important than all the other objections that I heard here.
Thank you. Councillor Davey?
Yeah, I think the future viability of the club is not actually our concern here. The argument is that this development is needed in order to make it viable. I must say, when I looked at the layout, I did have some concerns that it did look as though squeezing what looked like quite large footprint houses on the site did look a bit tight, even compared to the surrounding ones. There seems to be a little bit more space between them. So I do have some issues with the scale. I don't have a problem with the layout particularly, but I do have some problem with the scale of the housing on there. I'm assuming that landscaping, flooding issues and so on will all be dealt with at reserve matter. So we're only looking at access, layout and scale. But I do have some concerns about the scale. I don't think the highway issues are a big concern. It's 8 houses. It's going to definitely add some more traffic along that little road. But I don't think it will necessarily impact on the Bally School. And if there are parking issues there, well, maybe that's for them to address. And it is right on a bus route. So, you know, there are some possibilities there. So I am inclined to approve, but I do have some concerns about quite how many plots they're squeezing on this site. but I'd quite like to hear from the officers on that one and why they feel it's not overdevelopment of the site.
Thank you. You've got.
So I think, I mean, with this, if you're sort of looking around, I mean, so why is it not? So there's adequate separation distances between the houses in terms of, you know, if you look comparatively, for example, if you look at numbers 15 and 16, the separation distances is similar. They have adequate garden sizes, probably bigger than some on some sort of those more denser housing developments that we bring forward. They've got on-plot parking without taking, so this, but yet still retaining some front garden planting area. It isn't just all taken up with hard surfacing. And they've got garaging as well. So, for example, if this is, I mean, again, when we look at this, but whilst it shows them close together, if this is a single-story garage and this is a single-story garage, visually, the separation between these will actually be greater because you will see that space at first floor between the properties. So I think it looks denser when you're looking at it just in plan form. So generally, I don't think that there's any, you know, we don't have any policies on minimum garden sizes, and I think it would well exceed the ones that I think 50 square meters is what I see in some authorities, and these will be significantly larger than that. So overall, I do think that, you know, you've got potential for a bit of softening. And obviously, I think we will, you know, looking at this sort of, there is a bit of a pinch point here, and you'd have to look at that carefully at reserve matters and landscaping as how you deal with that. But there's potential for some tree planting within the street scene. So generally, I think compared to a lot of modern developments, I don't think that it's any more densely or overdevelopment than many a scheme that we have approved.
Thank you, Wendy. Vice Chair, Steve Hunt.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, Councillor Davey, I agree with you about some reservations about the scale, but I think what I've heard has made me think that actually, yeah, that it's not overdevelopment, and that to some degree the reserve matters will probably help to deal with pinch points, as has just been said. Regarding loss of sporting facilities, well, the tennis courts in particular, that if there's only 20 players, as we heard, I mean, you're not really losing anything. It's not being used, and well, I think it was also said that people prefer, you know, the stability of going to an indoor tennis centre where they know that the weather's going to be all right. So I would be very cautious about saying that you're losing something. It's a case of use it or lose it, and I think it hasn't been used, and that's why it's going, basically. Yeah. And what is coming is better, and I think probably on balance does conform with RC1, actually. So I'm coming out in favour of the officer's approval.
Councillor Barlow.
If this is the case that we're going to go to that, can we, is it possible for the officer to say that we make a condition that they are not to be self-build and that they would be developer-led in this case?
What would the reason for that be?
Well, if they agree to it, then at the end of the day, well, silt, protection of silt for a start, for the town of Exmouth to actually provide community infrastructure for the rest of the town. Sorry, self-build doesn't get silt requirements, does it?
No, it doesn't. But the self-build legislation for SIL is much stricter than, for example, for BNG. So it would be unlikely that a development of this scale would necessarily come forward as SIL exempt. I'm just thinking, I genuinely don't think we would have a policy reason to do that. I mean, if there's any comfort, they are well, I don't know if it's comfort, it's the opposite. They are getting rid of BNG exemptions for self-build. I'm not sure when it's coming into place, but it's happening. So yeah, that's another matter. But I can understand why you would suggest it. I don't think we've got the policy backing to be able to do that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Would somebody like to make a proposal then? Ollie?
Yeah, I'm going to propose approval in line with officer recommendation. Thank you, Wendy, for answering my concerns there. That's a good point about the layout as against the actual visual appearance. And I've got to say to Ian, we have already lost a lot of sporting facilities in Exmouth. We lost all the Royal College playing fields. I was reminiscing to Eileen about trips to the old Royal College outdoor pool earlier.
Oh, yeah.
So we lost all of that. But somehow we survive. Tennis is active in Exmouth. I believe they're about to redevelop the tennis courts in Fear Park
Yes,
as well,
I think they
aren't
are,
they?
to play area.
To a higher standard. I think that actually sporting provision in Exmouth is not too bad. I think that Nick will know better than I do. There's probably a lack of football pitches, but I think tennis is pretty well provided for, and the tennis centre has really revitalised things there.
Yeah.
And I think 3 high-quality courts is better than the 7 or so that they had, where basically 4 of those were just unusable, and they haven't been using them. So it is disused courts we are looking at, and so I don't really have a problem with the Cranford ensuring their viability by doing this and upgrading the existing facilities, and also to some extent diversifying in putting in a yoga studio or a multi-purpose studio, upgrading the facilities for the swimming pool, which is very popular. So I am very happy to support this
Right.
application
Is there a
and
seconder?
propose approval.
Yeah, Kim, you want to speak to it?
But it was me. So I'm quite happy to second it, and I don't think I can add anything actually that Councillor Davies said, 'cause I agree
Okay.
with him entirely. Thanks.
Thank you. Right, put it to the vote then. It's been proposed to approve the application. All those. Sorry? Oh, an appropriate assessment. Yes. Yeah, I know. It's been a long session, this one, hasn't it? Right, so we take the appropriate assessment first. All those in favour? Yeah, that's unanimous. Now the application itself. All those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Those against? Abstentions? That's clearly carried. Thank you. Right, thank you, members. Can we make it back here for past? Is that going to be long enough for you?
I don't want to watch you trying to gobble your lunch down in 15 minutes.
Did you notice that Maddie was out?
Could you turn your microphone off, please?
Oh, yes.